versus something she pick up. Right. And my wife had 20 to 50 responsibilities. And when I say that, that means she has a mother, she has her sisters, she has her dad, she has a lot of things that she's responsible for.
Right.
You know what she does?
Right.
She pays 100% of that.
Right.
You know what I do? I pay 100% of my life. When our life come together, my wife is a working actress who spends time away from the family to go work,
do our job.
Build. Right. We decided together, because I think I said one time we was in Miami, I said something about it being my house that I paid for. My wife looked at me, she was like, you will never say that to me again when it's something that we share. And so my wife was like, that when we moved to LA, I got half on it. You will never say my house again.
Wow.
She said, you can say that in the arena. And so in our life, our home, 50-50, we purchased it together.
Right.
50-50 in our household is, but she does something, I do something.
Right.
If we take a yacht trip, we could do it 50-50, or I can do it myself. But my wife is a working woman.
Right.
She's a boss and an independent woman in her own life.
Right.
She's like, I'm gonna put, you know what, that little 200 that you was gonna spend on this, I'm gonna throw something else on there and we're gonna go on a bigger trip. We're gonna ball out. Like, this is my wife.
Right.
Right? Like, I don't know about y'all, but I like having a wife that's like, that's cool, you can do that. The house we live in, thank God, in Hidden Hills, nice house.
Right.
Whatever millions. We could have had a nice house on my 50% too.
Right.
It'd have been nice.
Nice.
She was like, no, let me put something else on and let us live a little different.
Oh, yeah, they got a little bigger.
So we probably shared 3 things in our life that we 50-50 on.
Right.
Everything else, I'm 1,000% and she's 1,000%.
Right.
And so we decided that certain pieces of our life, we would share in it. Our daughter.
Whew, baby, listen, it's about to get mad. We are here talking to you guys, about this Gabrielle Union situation, because let me tell you something. Look, as always, it sparks conversation around finances, around relationships, around how we should handle the situation. And look, I want to be honest with you. I think this is a good topic. I think it's a good topic to talk about, and I think it's important too. And you know, I think what's interesting about it is that this proved our very point in the very beginning. So let's start at that point. The very thing that we spoke about, the reason why Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade's situation, why it plays out the way it does, is because there is trauma, right? There is trauma in Gabrielle Union. That means that she takes on a more masculine role, i.e., quote unquote, the financial aspect, wanting to be co-equal. Okay, right? Now, I think what's really key about this, okay, in this regard, is that I think we mentioned this in the previous video. We spoke about the fact that it's not just the wanting to pay, it's the fact that she was fighting for equality that was based upon past trauma. And when he said that it's my house, it re-traumatized her again, or at least triggered her, I should say, more likely, to then say, I'm not going to put myself in a place where I lack power. This is actually the real conversation. The real conversation here is that Gabrielle Union, I need her and Dwayne to work on those triggers. What I need Gabrielle Union to do is actually probably more than likely get some therapy in that area, right? Now, I'm not saying she can't pay the bills. It was the reason for, right? It's the reason for, right? So the reality of the situation is, we already said from beginning, the trauma that she had previously, which is it's before him, the trauma that she had about the safety of again not being controlled. Remember, we spoke about her sexual assaults. Those also play a major role in feeling safe. And the comment about it is my house is what triggered this event. Now, I'm guessing it hasn't taken them back. They've not been able to work it back, and maybe she doesn't want to work it back. Maybe she feels most comfortable in this place, and she refuses to go back to that. Okay, fair enough. But I think the key thing here is to speak about the fact that, first and foremost, she already had trauma before, and this is why we're here now. Okay. Now let's be freaking honest. We all come from a previous generation. You've probably heard your granddad. You probably heard your dad. You probably heard this. You probably heard a story from your mum before saying your dad's probably said something stupid like "It's my house" or "It's my money" or "I pay the bills" or something like that. We've all probably have a story of either it's your parents or you heard someone else on the road who probably said the exact same thing. Because men say stupid stuff when we're trying to usurp, and it's just the reality situation, right? There's a lot of men. Sometimes we do that stupid stuff, right? We get heated in a moment. We feel like, maybe we're being attacked or we're being defensive or we're not understanding your point or you're not understanding my point or, we feel like you're fighting us or we feel like, you're not listening to the lead. And then sometimes when that thing will come out, right? That thing will come out. Oh, I pay all the bills. It's the same thing. When we say it's my house or not, it's like, it happens. Unfortunately, these are some of the arguments that come out. People do say dumb stuff. Now, what's meant to happen is after this happens, you're supposed to work on this and be like, hey, look, my bad. I'm sorry. That shouldn't have been happening. I think, unfortunately, here, though, there's trauma previously. So that being said now, I don't know if without actually there being some professional help, it would have been very hard. Okay? It would have been very hard to take this back to the original point. Okay? All right. So thank you, CXM. This is all I wanted. I wanted some honesty because when I was looking at the comments were ridiculous. It's like as if people haven't said this thing before. Like we have women saying it's my kids. When they have a divorce, it's my kids. It's like you don't even realize you're using personal pronoun and ownership over kids and something like paying the bills. Right? We've all said some dumb stuff before, and I know it happens. The issue we have here is because okay, all right, inherently, all right, when in relationships there are power struggles. That coupled with the fact that there was previous trauma in Gabrielle Union, which means once it's said, can't be taken back. She solidifies her position. She says, you know what? You're never going to put me in a position where I feel like I am disenfranchised. And before I can jump on Gabrielle Union and be mad at her, I'm also aware that Gabrielle Union's trauma is no different to most people's trauma that they have in different areas. People have triggers in other areas, and they're like, "I'm never gonna lie to you again," right? You're never gonna call me this again. You're never gonna say this again because you have previous trauma. So, I do have empathy for Gabrielle Union, and I understand why. I do understand why Gabrielle Union might have said, "I'm not going back here again," right? Right. So here's my thing. So okay, so I think what's key about this conversation is let's start at that point first. Trauma was before Dwayne Wade got in the situation, and trauma has been induced once more again. Once you say my house, and what that means is when you say to somebody, it's my house, it's a power move, right? You are, as someone said, pulling rank. You are it's basically saying you have to yield in this moment. It's saying it's saying in a sense in this moment that you have to know who the leader is at this moment, right? It's a put you in your place kind of situation, and it's what happens when people feel they have the power in the relationship. Money is one of those things that creates power, and we're going to discuss that in a little bit later on, right? So when he said that line, more than likely it was probably an argument. He said it in and said my house, because I don't think you cause a trauma issue. I don't think it becomes triggering if he says one time, and maybe they were just talking and said, this house of mine, it looks good. My house looks so good. I don't think that's going to cause the trigger. You know what I mean? I don't think that's going to trigger. It is when you say it in a painful moment, right? And usually this comes out of an argument. It's usually when it comes to an argument, a disagreement. She probably disagreed with something he said, or he probably felt like he wasn't being understood. And in the heat of the battle of the moment, he comes out and he says, "This is my house anyway." And then at that point, okay, all right, at that point, that's where we have a power struggle. Now, I don't know what kind of other struggles they have as well, but that's for another day to debate, I think, as well. I can't go deeply because I don't know much of their relationship. But I told you this already before. I said I watched Gabrielle Union. I said, looking at even the way she dresses, the way she moves, the way she goes about her stuff, she's an advocate, she's a fighter, etc. Those kind of things. Of course, him having a baby on her too, it's not going to help her be able to rest in her ultimate feminine. Now, I'm not going to say she was in her ultimate feminine from the beginning because I don't really know. You know what I'm saying? But what I would say is, from what I've seen, even the last few years, and unfortunately, that's after the trauma of the cheating, the child, and etc. etc. I've seen a more, I would say, even the way she dressed, I said to you, I saw more masculine energy. I've seen a more masculine energy, right? I've seen a more masculine energy. So I don't know. I'm looking at that and I'm going, okay, but I understand why. She's protecting herself, right? She's protecting herself. She wants to make sure that she doesn't get played. She wants to make sure that she's not being done dirty. She wants to make sure that you know, she's not going to be in a position where she can get played once more again. And I understand why that is trauma, right? So that's cool. We can work with that. We can understand that. We can vibe with that, and we can move from that and actually begin to grow from that point. Now, let's talk a little bit about what he actually said, right? Because I think breaking down what he actually said would be really cool for us, and we can get a better perspective on of what he was actually saying. Break down on the video, okay? All right, cool. Let's have a look at the video once more. All right. Let's have a look.
First of all, let's say I have 20 to 50 responsibilities.
Right.
And my wife have 20 to 50 responsibilities. And when I say that, that means she has a mother, she has her sisters, she has her dad, she has a lot of things that she's responsible for.
Right.
You know what she does?
Right.
She pays 100% of that.
Right.
You know what I do? I pay 100% of my life. When our life come together, my wife is a working actress who spends time away from the family to go work,
do our job.
Build. Right. We decided together, because I think I said one time we was in my...
Before we get to that point now, let's address this first part of the comment, right? So what he actually says is in alignment with the video that she also spoke on her particular issue. She said she felt a strain and a pressure. And most people, like I said, refused to fully understand what she was saying, right? They wanted Dwayne Wade to be the issue. They wanted a black man to be an issue. They wanted a black man to be, he don't provide, he don't pay no, he don't, even as a rich man, he don't pay no bills. It's struggle love. They wanted to have the narrative of the black man ain't shit. Let's just be honest, right? They wanted to have that narrative. That wasn't the narrative here though. What she was describing of talking about pressure is that fact that she is a provider, not necessarily in her home, but the fact that she provides for other people's homes. That is what she was saying. And he's just confirmed what she was saying. Okay. So she herself has other homes that she provides for her mother, you know, maybe siblings or whatever, whoever she is. She's providing the full expenses of their home. Right? So when she says she feels the pressure of being a provider, it is not within her household with Dwayne Wade. And I said this on the video. It's not going to be because of Dwayne Wade. It's because she's having to provide for the other homes. And so now and this is what I said to you, it is when you become the sole provider, when everything's on your neck, it's tough, isn't it? It's difficult, right? It's very difficult. Being in a position of provision is so difficult. And so what she was describing was how difficult that thing is when you are in a place where everybody relies on you. It's not Dwayne Wade relying on her. It's not even her child that has to rely on her financially. The reliance is coming from family members who she is paying all their bills for, 100% paying all the things. So when she doesn't work, what she was saying was, when I don't work, the reality of the situation is that if I don't work, that family, that household, they don't eat. Right? They don't eat. So in that space, what she's saying is, what she was saying was like, that's a lot on me. That's a lot on me. So if I miss a work day, or if I situation where I'm like, with the situations where, like, obviously, like someone said, unexpected medical bills, whatever come up, she knows that she has to provide. There is no, well, someone else can do it because you are the financial breadwinner for those homes. And that, no matter what Dwayne Wade does, is still pressure on her neck that is uncomprehendable. Now, of course, Dwayne Wade can pay the bills in his household and the household that they are in, but the reality of the situation is she's still going to be stressed. She's still going to be tired. She's still going to feel some type of way. She's still going to feel that everything's on her because it is on her. You know, right? Everything is on her. So in that regard, this is what we are talking about. Right? This is what we're talking about. So it's incredible. It's incredible how people missed it because they wanted to go with the men ain't narrative. They really wanted to invest. And even when I see some of the comments on this particular video, the comments are so invested in men ain't shit. And I'm like, y'all are, listen, I keep telling you, if your experiences are guiding your beliefs, and your beliefs are guiding your attitude, and your attitude is guiding your perception. And when your perception is that men ain't shit, trust me, you're going to keep meeting men that ain't shit because you believe men ain't doo-doo. If you believe that black men ain't nothing, if you believe that black men ain't great, if you believe that black men ain't good for you, then guess what's going to happen? You're going to keep meeting those type of men. Right? You're going to keep meeting them because your perception and your attitude is showing up in your actual body language, the way you talk, the way you move, the way that you even, take up space amongst the other gender. You're going to realize you're going to encourage the wrong type of man. Right? Now, I'm not saying Dwayne Wade is perfect. I don't even like the fact that he cheated on her and had a baby or whatever. Did he have a baby on her? Whatever, etc. Right? So, I'm not saying that she doesn't have any for our good sis that things aren't happening to her. What I'm saying is that I think sometimes what happens is and I'm talking to the ladies because I have a predominantly woman audience. Okay, I have a predominant woman audience. I'm trying to let you know, don't let your perception and attitude be one where you despise men, because it doesn't help you get the man that you want. What I would say is people need to heal. Experiences do happen. And the same thing for the men who also listen to me as well. The reality of the situation is if you despise women, the way you show up also is you're going to end up with the women you're talking about, which is why I said about when I was talking about Red Pill and I was talking about those kind of people in the community manosphere, I talk about Cynthia G. They all do the same thing. They go to extremes. Now they validly have valid experiences, right? I was on Cynthia G's live the other time, and it was just like I saw some of the comments, and I said, "Y'all just be some of you, not all. Some of you really don't like black men." Now, of course, your experience is valid, but the reality of the situation is now how you show up. Even you commenting the way you're commenting is an energy. You're gonna show up to other black men, and they're gonna see that energy, but like, we don't want you. And the same for black men. I don't want to hear you complaining. Okay, I don't hear you complaining, right? I don't hear you complaining when you show up in the exact same way that women don't want either. Okay, so we have got to be able to look at a situation and say, how do I show up? How do I show up in the world? Am I always a skeptic of men? Am I always showing up and being a skeptic of women? Am I always somebody who always tries to have a critical mindset of men or women, right? If I'm always in that space, then what's going to happen is you're always going to see the negative side of things. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Right? Being cautious or being somebody who is observing is different from somebody who's overly critical and always looking for the negative. So both men and women need to be very careful that your experiences and your belief don't begin to inform the way you perceive and have an attitude of the world when it comes to opposite sex. Right? So that's what I'm saying. Now, in regards to what he just said, I think what's a beautiful thing about it is what he says about the fact that, she had a household and that's where her stress was coming from. Okay. That is where her stress is coming from. It's not just, the fact that It's not just the fact that you know, that they're 50-50 on certain things. It is the fact that she knows she is a provider. All right, let's continue on with the video as well.
Miami, I said something about it being my house that I paid for.
Uh-oh.
My wife looked at me. She was like, "You will never say that to me again when it's something that we share." And so my wife was like, "That when we moved to LA, I got half on it. You will never say my house again."
Wow.
Now, clearly here, this instant as well, as he said, it's funny because I think he knew exactly what he said, right? He started off by saying, I think I said something like along the lines of, "Nah, Negro, we know. We know." We know exactly what you meant. You meant what we know exactly you know exactly what you said that moment. You know exactly what you said that moment. But anyway, jokes aside, but the reality of the situation is what he's saying in this instance is he's letting you know that, look, I said this line about you know, it's my house and I paid for it. And he's letting us know that this is the trigger point. This is the epicenter of the troubles in their relationship. Right? This is the epicenter of the troubles in their relationship. And what she said was, from that moment, I'm not going to put myself in a position where he is going to have the ability to have power over me in this scenario. Right? You know what I'm saying? Okay. So in actual fact here, she is a person that, for her, she needed, because of that trigger in that moment or whatever, you know, she needed to wrestle back some of that power. And this is what we talk about, money being power. Money is power. I'm so sorry. It is, and it always will be. Money is power, right? You want to know how money is power? Women will stay in shitty relationships because a man makes money. That's the kind of power we're talking about, right? But also because money gives us the ability to have a range of options and choices that others wouldn't necessarily have, right? Money is power. And because of that, oftentimes in a relationship, money becomes a struggle point in a relationship. Money is definitely power within the course of a relationship. It really is, right? You know, because the definition of power is influence. It is the ability to influence, right? So when we talk about power, it doesn't give you authority, it gives you power. Authority is different. To put the two into perspective, when we say that, when I say money is power, it means it gives you the ability to influence. Money is not authority, because authority is position, right? That comes through natural leadership. You are given authority when your natural leadership qualities and skills come out to play. But money is power in a relationship. It's not all the power, but it is power, right? Which is why people will use it against people in a relationship, which is why women will use it against men when they are able to pay their way. You can't tell me nothing, right? And it's why men will also use it as a way, when I make all the money, just know this is my house, my rules. I go by what I do, right? Because everybody understands that money gives you freedom to maneuver and to move, right? See, if I make all the money, right? If I make all the money now, chances are I'm probably making the majority of the decision making. When you start to make money and I'm making money, you can leverage the power that you have because you make money to say, hey, well, hold on. For instance, let's say right now, you know, you guys are both working like Gabrielle, you know, and he is, and he says, I want to move from Miami to New York, right? Now she can go, hey, hold on. I know you're saying that, but I make a good amount of money. Okay, I make a great amount of money, and so you can't just move us from there. My job is here, and I can't just move my job. No. No, we make, if they make a similar amount of money, you're gonna realize that there's gonna be this struggle. See, human beings naturally like to fight for power. They're vying for it all the time, right? They're vying for control in the dynamics of a relationship all the time. right? And it's not always a bad thing, but a lot of times it is, right? Because there is bad intentions behind it, right? So in the reality of the situation, when a woman and man come together, if they make a similar amount of money, right? Oftentimes you might see that there's that decision making. Now he has to consider her if they make a similar amount of money. You can't just usurp it and move. You can't just pick us up and move to New York. What? We make a similar amount of money. What are you talking about? Why? Because now the money gives us leverage coming to the table. Right? Now, this is not everybody's relationship. I'm not saying that's everybody's relationship at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying, giving an example how money can instantly become a power situation, struggle. Right? But if he makes a considerably large amount of money, more than her, considerably large, meaning that he pays all the bills and then some, and she can even have disposable income from him, yeah, she's going to find it hard to say anything. Right? She's going to find it hard to say anything. Right? So I'm not, like, for instance, we take LeBron James and Savannah James. Of course, LeBron James will consult Savannah and ask her. I'm not saying that, I absolutely believe that he probably would have consulted her and said, "Hey, what do you think?" But if he knows that he can only go to Cleveland next, okay, if he knows he can only go to Cleveland next as a basketball team, guess what Savannah and the rest are gonna do? Well, Savannah, we got two choices. You can stay here with the kids, and I can go, or you gonna come along, depending on what he wants, right? Because of the considerable financial range and gap means that now, because he has that money, he makes a majority of decision making when it comes to it. That doesn't mean he doesn't consider her. It means that a majority of the decisions will be made by him. That's power, right? That's power. And money does that, okay? So it often plays about a big role in relationships, hence why divorces happen because of money. Well, at least because of how people handle money. It's a big thing, okay? So it's really important to understand that aspect. Now, in regards to Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade, let's be real. Of course, he makes considerably a large amount of money, but she makes a good amount of money too. You get what I'm saying to you? So in that instance, he can't just tell her anything. He can't. Right? He won't just tell her anything because she has money, and that gives her what? Leverage. And that leverage also means that if she decides she wants to quit this relationship, she can. Why? Because she's not dependent upon you. Let's have that conversation, right? Because once she gets money in her pocket, you can't just talk anyhow in any way, because I could be out here anytime. You understand what I'm saying to you? Right? You talk reckless, I could be out of here. Hence why when he talked reckless and said, "This is my house," what did she say? If that's the game we are playing, let me know. If that's the game we're playing, have some shame, have some class, let me know, because I'm willing to play that game. I will pay the bills. You want to play that game? I will pay the bills. Don't worry. I will pay my end of the bills, so that now you can't chat shit and you can't just say anything. You just can't make unilateral decisions. No. You pay your way to make decisions. I know people don't like to say it, but you pay your way to be able to make decisions. And she's paid her way to make decisions. Right? So now he can't just do whatever he want to do. He can't. He can't just do whatever he wants to do. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Yeah. So, so this is what you pay the cost to be the boss. Absolutely. Thank you, Silver Shadow. I think that was the thing I was thinking in my head and I couldn't get out. Thank you very much. Right? You pay the cost to be the boss. And so she's paid her way now to be the boss in some aspect, meaning you can't tell me how and when and what we going to decide this together, or I get to decide what if I want to do, etc., etc., right? Now, what's really interesting about this is when I have I think we've had conversations on the channel before about, I remember we spoke about, we're talking about how we want men to be in a space where they pay all the bills and, a woman just gets to rest in her femininity. And then we had a conversation on this channel some months back, myself and one of my guys, and we spoke about how one relationship where a woman was earning 3 times more than her partner, and she decided she wanted to buy Beyonce tickets, right? But her and her partner had a deal that they were going to save a certain amount of money each month to make their goal. Guess what happened? Even my own audience, some of them, guess what happened? when push came to shove about whether she should not do this or not, the women were like, well, it's her money. She should be able to do what she wants. Oh, so y'all now understand it's my money. But when Dwayne Wade is now saying that, and this is not my audience, by the way, you guys weren't saying this, but I'm talking about the people in the comment section of the Instagram. But when Dwayne Wade is saying it's my house, you suddenly realize that how can he say it's my house when it's our house? But when it comes to you buying Beyonce tickets for £1,000 and breaking your savings protocol, you suddenly realize, hey, okay. Now, of course, these are different circumstances because Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union are married, whereas this young lady and that gentleman were not married. Okay, but I think it speaks to something about principle. Do you say it's my money or do you say it's our money? Right? Because the beef we're having right now on these streets is whether it's my money or it's our money. Right? It's we until it comes to money. Right? When a woman's making, and I'm just gonna give a perspective, when a woman's making money, it's no longer we, is it? It's yours. That's not all women. There's a lot of great women out there who would definitely not see it as theirs. There's so many great women out there. By the way, I'm being real. There's so many great women out there who don't see it as that way. That even if they earn more than you, they would never see it as their money, right? Just saying. I personally wouldn't advise it though. But yeah, you know. So the reality of the situation was, right? People use money as a usurping tool of power. It is a resource to acquire power. And so, you know, oftentimes in these kind of scenarios, people can jump real quick into fighting a side. And I'm like, hey, wait up, hold up, wait a minute. You know what I mean? Before we get anywhere, money is power and it creates a dynamic in a relationship. Yeah. Yeah. So it's political what I see. Katie Rollins said it's you know, it's a double standard. Sorry, it is a double standard, right? So it be like that. Silver Shadow said, if you're a Christian man who wants a woman to submit to you and take your name and do this and that, but you can only split the bills, not provide. Now, this is going to be really interesting. It's really interesting. Should I should we take down this path? I like it. Let's answer this question. Is your respect of me to submit to me based on my financial bank account? Okay. Right? Is your respect of your partner based upon your submission? Sorry, let me say that again. Sorry. Is your submission of your partner based upon the fact that he makes enough money to provide for you? I'm saying this as a general term, right? If you as a woman only submit to a man because he makes more than you, you are in the wrong place. Wrong place. You are in the wrong place. I'm not saying money isn't power, by the way. Again, I agree, right? And it definitely helps in terms of what we talk about leadership. But let's be very clear now, right? If your submission is based upon money, then you're not submitted to him. You're submitted to his wealth. You're not submitted to him. Do you know what I'm saying to you? If you are submitted only to him because he makes a certain level of money or makes more money than you, you're not submitted to him. You're submitted to his wealth. You're not submitted to him. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Because I'm saying if you are a Christian man, you took it as a Christian. If you said the world, maybe we can discuss that. But you took it as Christian. If you take it as Christian, what you're saying is not correct and not biblical. You're not submitting because he makes more money than you. And by the way, submission is two ways. So it's not one way that I see submission. The Bible describes it as we submit to one another, and we submit in different ways, by the way, right? So we submit in different ways. Here's the biggest thing that you've mentioned, which is really powerful, right? If you're a Christian man who wants a woman to submit and you take your name and do this and that, but you only split the bills, not provide, right? Then what you're actually saying in the moment is, if he doesn't financially make enough money to be able to pay all the bills and provide in that particular essence, right? Then I don't have to submit. But what was the supplication, or what was the command from the word that says that, right? in Ephesians 5, when it breaks it down, and thank you for bringing this question because I think it really will help a lot of people as well, Silver Shadow. When it breaks it down, in fact, let me even bring it up so that we can not misquote the word of God, and we can bring it in, in alignment. But it gives a definition for both men and women when it comes to us submitting. And how we submit in the instance of as a man is to love our wives. And women will submit by what? Respecting their husbands. If you only respect me because I make money, when I don't make money, then you are going to be in contradiction of that particular scripture, because you're not going to respect me. So your respect cannot be, your submission of respect cannot be based upon the fact that I make more money than you. You get me? You feel what I'm saying to you? Yeah. So let's get into that. There we go. Here we go. So bring that scripture into play. Okay. Let's share a tab so you can see it. All right, cool. So scripture in play. Ephesians 5. And let me just put your thing in. I'm going to hide it for a second too. So Ephesians 5 here, let's read from verse 20. Giving thanks for all things. In fact, no, I can't even read from there because it's actually telling us to read from verse 18. And be not drunk with wine wherein is excess, but be filled with the Spirit, speaking to yourselves in psalms and hymns and spiritual songs, singing and making melody to the Lord in your hearts, giving thanks for all things to God the Father in the name of Lord Jesus Christ, and submitting yourselves to one another in the fear of God. Women, submit yourselves to your own husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, even as Christ is the head of the congregation, and he's a savior of the body. Therefore, as a congregation is subject to Christ, so also let wives be subject to their husband in all things, right? Now, a good love. Now, the subjection is that this man should be subjected to Christ. Okay? All right? It should be subjected to Christ, right? This is the first and foremost thing, okay? The question was based upon what you said, Silver Shadow. You put according to faith. So I'm bringing you faith. Let's not switch it. I'm not talking about Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade, by the way. I'm talking about your question, which says, if you are a Christian man who wants a woman to submit, so we have a pan diagram to work from. You gave us this pan diagram, and I appreciate that. So we're going to break it down, right? We ain't going to lie about it. We're going to break it down, okay? All right? So then it goes on to say, husbands, this is your submission as husbands. Love your wives even as Christ loved the congregation and gave himself for it, to sanctify it and to cleanse it with the fountain of water through the word. Ooh, I got a cold here. I apologize, guys. Bloody heck. Okay, so let's break this part down, right? So then also goes on to say, sanctify it, cleanse it with the fountain of water through the word, to make it for himself a glorious congregation without spot or wrinkle or any such thing, but to be holy and without blame. This is how men ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. For no man ever yet hated his own flesh, but cares for and cherishes it, even as the Lord does the congregation. For we are members of his body, of his flesh, and of his bones. On his account, a man must leave a father and mother and continue with his wife, and the two will be made one flesh. Okay, this is a great mystery that speaks between Christ and the congregation. Nevertheless, see to it and every one of you loves his wife truly as even as himself, and let the wife see that she fears her husband. And the fear here is respect and reverence. Now, key thing is here, women are to respect their husband in all things, but men are to love their wives like Christ loves the church. How does he love the church? He sacrificed himself for the church, right? He put the church to a point where he was willing to die for that church, to a point where he would provide for that church, right? And of course, provision on different men looks different, but I'm gonna bring it to what God produced, right? God was able to provide in a particular way where you just have to turn up. Truth. If I'm gonna go to the fullest context of what when God was talking about, provision, right? For him, from his perspective, when he spoke about provision, what he was bringing to the table is that he's the ultimate provider, right? He's the ultimate provider because he has provided everything. And you simply just need to turn up. That's what's called faith. That is what we call faith. Faith is you just turning up and walking in alignment with what God has already ordained for your life. But of course, man isn't God. But what he's talking about is provide for your wife, provide for your family. You do your best to be able to put food on the table. You do your best to be able to provide comfort, provide safety, emotionally, mentally, spiritually, financially, sexually. You are to provide in these areas. Now, of course, in some areas of, and most people, and like I keep saying again, financially, most men are not going to be able to make enough to provide wholesomely the whole amount of paying all the bills. They're not that many. The majority of people will not be in that space because the majority of people are not rich. Okay? It's just what it is, what it is. But biblically speaking, if I take it to its fullest extent, what God produced and what he showed us was, hey, this is what I do. And I provide to a point where you just need to walk in it. You just need to trust whatever plan I have and walk in it. Right? That's what God said. That's what his particular thing is. Right? So, as a man, yes, you are called to provide. As a man, you're called to love. As a man, you're called to protect. Yes. As a man, you're called to be a priest over your home. And that has varying degrees. Right? Now, the leadership is not based upon you making the most amount of money. And when I say, sorry, apologies, wrong word. Leadership is a wrong word. Your respect and reverence for your husband is not based upon money. It's based upon his role. Ooh, let's go there because we're gonna go. Since you take me biblical, let's go there. Let's go there. No, let's go there. Let's go there today because we are gonna go there because people be using Christianity as a way to try and usurp it. Your submission is not based upon his finances. It's based upon his role. And if he's doing the role to the best that he can, and that may mean that you might be doing 50-50, right? You are still to respect him as the head of the woman. And when I say head of the woman, it does not mean you can do whatever you want. Like I've heard some people describe, I'm the man, so it doesn't matter what you do. I can do whatever I want to do. It's like, that's not what good leadership is. And that's not leadership that God has ordained for man and woman. It's not dominion over your woman. Let's make it very clear. It's not dominion over your woman. It's dominion over the animals, the earth, etc., etc. But it's not to have dominion over your wife, meaning it is not a dictatorship. You get what I'm saying to you? It's not a dictatorship. How I lead is out of a place of love, out of servitude. So I try my best to make sure what works for the family. Right? I try to do my best as a leader to make sure that I'm considering how my actions will impact the rest of my family. Because I'm supposed to feed my family, not only financially, but spiritually, mentally, emotionally, and my wife specifically sexually. I'm supposed to feed, meaning I'm supposed to nourish, meaning I'm supposed to input. I'm supposed to, to give in those areas as best I can. Hence why when we ejaculate, we give, right? We're in a giving space, okay? And the woman is in a receiving space, right? So, unfortunately, how life works, right? A majority of men financially will not make enough money to be able to pay all the bills and do all that kind of stuff. That's just the reality of life. That's just the reality of life. Even Jesus himself said, hey, the poor will always be among you. Right? The poor will always be among you. So when we talk about the roles that we're talking about, I'm saying you're not submitting to a man that is going to be dictating over you. And if he is, he's the wrong type of leader. You're not submitting to a man who just does whatever he wants and doesn't consider how this is going to impact you. You're not going to submit to a man that is reckless with money in terms of he just spends it anyhow, anyway. without thinking about the cost of how it affects the wife or the children. We're not talking about men who gamble with their money. We're not talking about men who throw their money down a drain. We're not talking about men who are succumb to materialism and that at the expense of their family. No, we're not talking about those type of men. This is why character is important, right? This is why I keep saying to you, character of that person is important, right? So leadership here doesn't always mean that he's going to make the most money. But what I'm saying to you is, if we're talking from a Christian perspective, you are to submit to that man. Now, here's a key thing. His submission is love. And do you know why red pill is partly problematic? Not just red pill, but men sometimes, not all men, some men's thinking is so off because it goes against the word of God. Let me tell you why. Because of trauma. So we don't want to talk about, let's get deep into it. Sorry, apologies. My cold is catching up with me. Let's talk about trauma, right? For a lot of men, they are traumatized they're traumatized with emotional wounds, right? The Bible says we should love our wives. This is our submission. Our submission is to love you. And the difficulty behind that for a lot of men is it makes them vulnerable. That's why God said you should do it. See, when you love that person, you are vulnerable. What is the weakness of Superman, people? Is it not kryptonite? But what's his second weakness? Lois Lane. If you want to get at Superman, you got two choices. You're going to get at his kryptonite or you're going to get at his woman. Let's say we take the kryptonite out of situation. Kryptonite being your own sin, whatever, your own iniquity. But take that out of the question. Outside of yourself, what is your biggest, okay, all right, what is your biggest weakness as a man? It is the woman. The woman that you choose to love makes you weak. It makes you vulnerable. But it makes you strong too, because it's the reason why you fight. But that's why God issues it as a way of submission, because you literally submit yourself to her by serving her. So it's a submission on two ways. So when both parties are broken and they choose people that are incorrect for themselves, they inadvertently cause that particular principle that God has asked for from both people to suffer. Because when a woman has experienced men who have taken advantage of the leadership role, she struggles to submit to men. When a man is emotionally wounded or has met women who have taken advantage of him as a man, he struggles to love another woman because really and truly he's scared that if he loves her, he's going to be weak. And if he's weak, he's going to be taken advantage of. This is an unhealed perspective and a brokenness that oftentimes is where people struggle. Right? So this is really important that we see this from a healed perspective. Money is not the reason why you're submitting to him. You are submitting to him because the fact of his role, and yes, he should have moral character. He should be grown in his moral character. He should have matured in his character. He's not mature in him being a businessman, or mature in him being a preacher, or mature in being an entrepreneur, or mature in me doing YouTube. Right? That's not the maturity you're looking at me. You're looking at my character. Character. Okay? Character. So that is very important, right? It's very important to understand. All right. So that is also something that needs to be looked at as well. So yes, that scripture is very powerful because both parties are to submit, because that's where both parties are weak. And I've done this before. I've said this before. Genesis 3 is what it brings about, right? Let's see. So Otu gave us a question as well. So Kojo, what happens when you love your wife, but she still disrespects you when you want to save the money instead of Beyonce ticks, asking for homeboy in that situation? So I think what's the key thing here, right? This is the key thing here. I think when issues like this come up in relationships, there are often hidden things that are behind the scenario. And so we have to ask the extra question. Let's go there. God give me wisdom when I speak this so that I can speak some truth, but also can I speak to minds and hearts, Lord, to help them in Jesus' name. When we talk about this situation, I think you've given a good point here or two, right? Here's the reality of the situation. It's not about Beyonce tickets. And neither is it about her wanting to spend on the Beyonce tickets for you as a man, not you personally, but for a man, right? So let's go here. For the man, it's not about her wanting to spend the money on Beyonce tickets, but for her, it's also not about her being able to spend on Beyonce tickets. It's deeper than that. It is what it represents, right? Oftentimes, it represents, like you described there, the word a disrespect, right? Which is probably tied to something previously. Then it might also speak to the fact that for her, money might be freedom. Okay, money might be freedom for her, and so for her, when she hears we can't spend the money on Beyonce tickets, she might be feeling like I'm being restricted and I don't have freedom. But also the same thing for him too. He might be feeling like, but when I'm telling you this is what we're going to do, why are you changing the rules now? I feel like I'm being disrespected. Now, what's important now is how we're going to work these scenarios and be able to explain to each other what we're actually feeling, because that's the truth. It's a feeling. And feelings are an expansion of our emotions. They are an expansion because they're based oftentimes in experiences that have happened, that we know that emotions attached to those experiences, but we're now feeling, right? And feelings tend to last a longer. And you know, you have that saying about people always remember how you made them feel, right? It is the feeling that is the issue in this argument. In fact, most arguments are actually based in the feeling. What are you feeling? So, for instance, when you say you want to go to Beyonce, and I'm saying to you, I don't think the money's well spent by going to Beyonce, it's because my feeling is this is not where our money is best spent. I don't think like this is going to yield the results that we need. Right? I don't think it's gonna grant the results that we need. But she's going to feel like you're not supporting, or you're not allowing her to have some level of freedom, or, you know, you're not being fun or whatever, right? What's important now is to speak in that moment, say, what is a healthy compromise then? If we're locked and loaded and our heads are locked here, what is a healthy compromise? Because now I know that, and this is why it's so important to slow down in these arguments. Right? That arguments oftentimes are because people are emotionally aroused in that moment, both men and women. And let me tell you something about men, right? Some of you believe that you're non-emotional until it gets to an argument. And then we realize you have mad emotions. And this is what I'm saying. Both men and women have what we call emotional arousal. And you have to learn how to not really be having arguments in emotional arousal. Right? You have to learn that. Now, let me be very clear. Sometimes the situation requires for a man to say, there is no compromise. This is what we're doing. There are situations like that where you say, hey, listen, love you, but this is not what we're doing right now. And the compromise might be, do you know what? In 4 months' time, let's start saving now. Okay, let's start saving now, and we'll go to another concert. I know it's not Beyonce, but when we started, they said this was going to be the path we're going to go on. This is how we're going to save our money. Right? Because sometimes there are going to be times where you're going to be the bad guy and you're going to be the villain. And I'm going to say this point again. When that relationship fails, you failed. And this is me speaking to men, not women. Right? This is why it's so important. I'm speaking specifically to men. And this is why certain men feel a little bit frustrated, but I'm going to speak to them specifically. Choosing the right woman is the very first thing that you must do. Yeah? Choosing the right type of woman is essentially the most important thing you can do. Number 2, there are going to be times where you're not the good guy and you're going to be comfortable with that. Beyonce tickets might be one of those situations, but it's how you deliver that information, right? It's not, it's my house, my savings, we do whatever we want. That's not what we do. And she also, too, cannot usurp the fact that, well, I've put in 3 times more savings, so I can just do whatever I want. Well, if you're doing that, what you're doing is the wrong thing. Right? Now what you're saying is, I'm independent of you. Well, if that's the case, then why are we doing as a team? Right? So the reality of the situation is there are going to be times where you're going to need to say, hey, do you know what? We've been putting money into the situation. Okay. We've been putting money together. This ain't it. right? We had a goal in mind. Nothing else was going to interrupt this particular aspect. We're going to flow in this aspect. Now, unless it's an absolute emergency, okay? Unless it's an absolute emergency, there's no reason why we are going to send our money into putting on Beyonce right now because we have a goal in mind. Okay, so we're gonna stick to our goal in mind, right? Now, if you already have income on the side that you can spend that money on, fantastic. Maybe that might be the solution. If you come and tell me, babe, I have a solution. I actually have money on the side, extra aside my putting my money into the savings account that we have to join that I can put towards the Beyonce ticket. Problem solved. Okay, babe, no worries. Problem solved. Right? Problem solved. Do you get what I'm saying to you? Right? It's about finding solutions to problems. And sometimes there's no immediate solution, and sometimes there is. Yeah? Sometimes there is. So, and this is based upon not necessarily her having, this was based upon a scenario that was given about them already putting money into a pot of savings. If you already have money on the side, there's not an argument to be had here. You know what I mean? There's no argument to be had. It's you have monies disposed already. That's completely different. You know, it's completely different, right? So, you know what I mean? So I think that's the key part. Ludwin, that is not what we're saying at all. You know what I mean? That's not what we're saying. We're not talking about people being broke or anything like that. We're talking about real solutions here and real scenarios now where people are making money and we're trying to save and trying to go towards a certain point. You know what I mean? Like, that's what we're looking for. You know, and that's, again, Latasha, that's a great point too, right? So and that's why I'm saying to you that a compromise could be that if Beyonce is going to do another tour in next year, which, let's be honest, Beyonce is not going to do another tour, so it's very much a rarity. But let's say, you know, Beyonce is going to come again, you know, and whatever, right? I may want to concede. I may say, do you know what, you know, or and again, and here's the thing. Let me make this point clear. This is another point. Oh my God. Okay. Let me take this point. Okay. Let me make this point. If you guys are both saving for something, right, in general, right, and let's say the Beyonce's thing comes up and it's like, you know, once in a lifetime situation or whatever, right? And you know, it's once in a lifetime situation, whatever, right? Then what you'll realize is that I may want, if you make your point to me to say why you want to go to this Beyonce concert. See, sometimes what happens is people just say, I want to go to Beyonce concert, and the other person doesn't understand the gravity of why you want to go, right? This is why we explain things to people to bring them into understanding, right? Like so sometimes we need to make people understand, right? Oh, babe, I want to go to Beyonce concert, and he goes, babe, listen, financially it's not working right now. You might be saying, listen, babe, listen, Beyonce comes once every blue moon. I've been waiting for this moment for the longest of times, etc. You know, so I can go to this Beyonce concert. Can we please take a little bit of money out, etc. Then maybe, and as I said, if I'm looking and going and I'm seeing the reasoning, then we can potentially reason. Now, again, if he says no, are you now going to go into a descendancy? Right? Are you now going to, because I said no to the Beyonce request, are you now going to throw a fit and now go, well, I'm just going to do whatever I want to do? If that is the case, we're not in union. Right? We're not in union. And what I'm going to say it again, right? And this is me coming from a male perspective, and I'll give the woman's perspective too. I understand that, you know, Beyonce is a big thing, and it's not just Beyonce. Beyonce represents other things, so it's not just Beyonce. We're just using it as an example, focal point. A lot of times in relationships, there may be requests that are granted, but there also be times where requests are not going to be granted, right? Because financially, it doesn't work. And as a man too, I should also be subject to that I can't just also then throw it in your face and be like, well, babe, let's buy these NBA tickets or let's buy these soccer tickets, when you know that financially doesn't fit into the plan. Right? So what I'm saying to you is, if you said, okay, and this is really interesting, right? So Queen Ludwig said, she said, I'm definitely going whether you like it or not. Then you are showing your dissension. You are planting the seed for the own downfall of your own relationship. I'm just gonna tell you the truth. If a man says to a woman, if a woman says, listen, babe, I don't like what you're doing here, right? And he ends up doing it, he's planting the seed for the dissension of his relationship. It's the same thing. Right? Now, maybe you're joking. I don't know. I personally don't know. Maybe you're bantering. Who knows? Okay. But the reality of the situation is people have sorry. I said the same thing about our relationship with God sometimes, right? We do the same thing to God, right? God will be like, that door's shut. I'm saying no. And you'll be like, I don't care. I want it anyway. And I've been there and I've done it. And I'm not going to say that anyone's bad. I'm not going to say anybody, condemn anybody. We've all been there, right? And, people will literally go behind God's back. Somebody who loves you, cares about you, and has your best interest at heart, even you will go behind his back. And that means me and you, right? How much more if your husband then says, if this is not something we need to do right now, and you go behind his back, what you're doing, you're creating seeds of dissension. I know people don't like it. I understand people don't like it. It's a harsh truth, right? When you say that you're going to do anything irrespective of whether your partner likes it or not, you are creating the seeds of dissension. You just said you're going whether you like it or not. Fantastic. Well, you're creating the seeds of dissension in your relationship. You are creating the end of your relationship early on. If I do something that you don't like, and I say, I don't really care what you think, I'm doing this, right? How long before I create the seeds that are going to destroy this relationship? I've already started creating the seeds. If I'm unwilling to listen, right? And this is why I said for both men and women, you need to pay attention to people's character. See, what Ludo is talking about, she might be joking. I think Ludo might be joking, so I'm just gonna play it as that she's joking or whatever, right? For me, it's a character issue. I don't say character issue, but let me say it's someone who doesn't really understand that we're a team. So that's fine. I don't need to be with someone like that. And neither do you. And neither a woman should also be with a man who doesn't want to also do what's best for the family. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Right? We're creating dissension. So based on the example that I gave, which I gave an example, and I spoke about the money being in savings, I gave that example, but some of you are triggered. I need you to just listen to what I'm actually saying, because I'm talking about an actual example. If we're saying that, then what you're doing is you're creating your own dissension. Do you see what I'm saying to you? Right? A ball game, me going to buy a Harley bike, me going to buy a brand new car, whatever, it's not worth my relationship. It's not worth my relationship. You know what I mean? Like, it's not worth a relationship. If we have agreed on something and we said we're going to do this, I'm going to do this. Because I'm first and foremost value the fact that you said, and if I go and say, babe, can I do this? And you say no, me going to do it anyway and okay, let me make it very clear. Let's go back, because clearly I don't want to miss everybody, right? Let me go back and address this appropriately. The example that's given, let's do that right now, right? The example that was given, Beyonce ticket, was a couple. They weren't married, they had been dating, all right? And they were trying to save up for their house. Okay, they were trying to save up for their house, right? They were putting money into the pot. She was earning, I believe, 3 times more than he was earning. So they were putting money into the pot, right? And so as they were putting money into the pot, she's putting 3 times in. So let's say she puts 3,000 in, he puts 1,000 in, right? Let's say they're now at what? They've done 9 months. I don't know how long they're done. So it's £27,000 in the account, and he's got 1,000. So that's what? 9,000 to 27,000, right? Sorry, Yeah, 9 months. Yeah, 27. So yeah, his 9,000 to 27,000, right? So that's around about what? 36,000, right? Cool. Let's say Beyonce ticket. Let's just be wild about it. Beyonce tickets is $1,000, right? It's $1,000. Okay. I don't know how much the house was, whatever. I don't think they ever mentioned it. Now, what was said was that she came onto a show and she said she had spoke to her partner at the time and said, you know what? She wants to be able to take some money out of the savings that they were using for the house, okay, all right, to buy Beyonce tickets, right? And the gentleman said to her, no, we have agreed that this is what we're going to put into the account to keep on going the way we're going, okay, all right? We've agreed that this is where we're going to go. We're going to put this amount of money into the savings, and we're going to go forward, right? It got to a point, maybe like 9 months in or whatever, how long they've been saying for, I can't remember how long it was. And you know, and then it got to a point where she wanted to take money out of the actual savings that they had put together. That's what the beef. She was like, well, you know, I put in 3 times more than you, so you know, I can take it out if I want to take it out. That's basically where it got to. Okay, right? That's literally where she got to. Right? And I said in the beginning of this live, I said to you, it's very interesting how when we did that live, how certain women, not all, certain women were quick to be like, well, she makes more money, so she can do whatever she wants. And I said, if that's how you see things, I hope you keep the same energy when a man says the same thing to you. It's a usurping of power, and it's of one of dominance and one of dictatorship, not of partnership, right? It's not one of partnership. And what I was saying is, once she takes that money out of that account and goes and does it without his consent, or does it without his blessing, or whatever, him saying yes and agreeing to it, you are creating the seeds of dissension in your relationship already. So my question is, and I mean, to be honest, when you really deep it, I don't know why she didn't have any other money elsewhere. Why was all her money going straight into that pot at the time? She should have agreed to have her own disposable income as well. You know, she should have had her own disposable income on the side anyway. That's how I see things anyway, right? So that was a conversation. So in this regard, what we're talking about is, if you agree to something together like this, and I say no, and you go behind my back and you go and do it, you've created some dissension in the relationship. And that dissension, if it's not addressed and it's not appropriately identified and corrected, we are going to create a tear in the fabric of this relationship long term. You know, right? So what's important is that, and I can't do the same, I can't do that either. Just because I consider myself to be the leader, it does not mean that I can go, well, you know what? I'm gonna take some money out of here and go and buy a car. Like, you hear people say this stuff, right? You hear people say that kind of stuff. You hear that, right? That you hear people straight away go to, you know, that you hear some people say, well, I took money out of the joint account and went and spent this amount of money. What? What are you doing? I took this money out when I started a business. What? How? It's a joint account. You can't just go out and take money out and then go and spend it on whatever you want to go and spend it on. It doesn't work like that, right? Whether you're the leader or not, it does not make a difference. We must agree, right? We must agree. So this is important. This is very important. So going together, when we do this, right, we must be in alignment and in agreement. How can two walk together unless they agree? So if you don't agree, what we're causing is dissension and division in our relationship, right? So it's not about the £1,000, Ludwin. It's not about £1,000. All right, it's not about £1,000. And the way you're talking is showing me your attitude. I don't know if you understand that, Ludwin. Since you said you're not joking, you're being serious. I'm gonna call you out now. How you're talking is showing your attitude. The way you're typing is showing your attitude. And I'm trying to tell you, listen, It's not whatever you want to do, whatever you want to do. You've called him broke. You said the audacity of this man crying because it's $1,000. That is a level of disrespect that you don't realize is even showing. That's going to show up in any relationship you end up going into. By the way, I call out both men and women on this channel. So if you're new here, don't get stressed. I call both men and women out when they act mad on my channel. How you're typing about the opposite sex is exactly the kind of thing I'm talking about when it comes to respect. What you're telling me and how you're typing it is exactly what we're talking about here. Respect. Right? So there's a way that we have to go about certain situations, right? There's a way that we talk about the opposite sex. And so, yes, I agree. There are going to be situations where I'll hear it and be like, this man is not doing the right thing. I'll be saying that and we'll say it happily, right? But there's literally, all right, it's literally was a joint account that they said they're going to put the money in. You cannot twist it any other way and be like, I can do whatever I want to do. Then, okay, fine. Do whatever you want to do. And it's again showing your attitude. It's contemptuous. And I've said this before. This does not provide longevity in a relationship. Same thing for a man. If he doesn't listen to you, if he's somebody whose character is not someone who is going to hear you and is not going to respect you as an individual in a relationship, this is not the type of man you should be dating. My good sisters and my good friends. You know? A level of respect on both sides. So for the men, they must adhere and listen. And for the women, they too should listen to their partner because it is one of servitude. Your relationship is not self-serving. It is serving others, meaning your other partner, and putting each other first. And sometimes that does mean we have to deny each other. Now, of course, if Ludwig, you had a separate account, and he tries to tell you, you can't spend that money, I think we have a different issue. Now we have a control issue. You know what I'm saying to you? If that's the case, then I think we have a control issue. You get what I'm saying to you? Because as a leader, I should be able to have a conversation about a budget. Maybe you're a better budgeter than me. Maybe you may budget, right? Whatever. But we should be budgeting for disposable income. I've said this before. When I had a girl, right, we sat down and we budgeted. And I said, babe, you're going to need some money, right? You're going to need some money for disposable income. So as much as you're saving X, Y, and Z, you need disposable income too, because there are things that you're going to like. And when we sat down and spoke about money, okay, when we sat down and spoke about money, I understood that she was coming from a freedom place. For her, she needs to spend money to be free. It doesn't work like that for me. I'm a person that when I don't spend money, I'm happy. If I can save money, I'm very happy. Okay? All right? If I can save money, I am very happy. Okay? So the reality of the situation is that we have to also understand where the other person's coming from. So, you know what? I had to even work the budget and kind of change it a little bit because she needed a little bit more disposable income because she needs to spend. That's okay. No beef. Did you see what I'm saying to you? No beef. I understand. You need some money to spend. Hey, babe, you need some money to spend. Even if my partner told me, listen, babe, I love to save money. I'll say, but hey, babe, let me be real with you. Okay? Let me be real with you. Okay? You need some money here to have disposable income. Even if it's maybe buy some friends a present or whatever. I know we're doing joint stuff, whatever, but babe, you're going to need a separate account. Okay? You're going to need that. You see what I'm saying to you? Right? And that's true, Ludibur. She might not have, but then she hasn't accounted for it. So it's unfortunate. We've set the budget and we're going with it. Right? Beyonce is not an emergency. Right? Now, of course, maybe we can reason. Maybe maybe in our conversation, I've realized, right? Maybe in our conversation, I've realized that, you know what? You are such a diehard Beyonce fan, diehard Beyonce fan that, you know what? You need to be able to, maybe this is, I can go, do you know what, baby? I know you've always told me from the beginning. You've told me from the beginning that Beyonce is your one and only. Then I now know ahead of time. So I already know about this. So I'm like, babe, do you know what? I know we said we're not gonna break the protocol, but you know what? I already knew. that you and Beyonce is a thing. Here we go. Put them, you know what? Take it. You know what I mean? Like, you know, there we go. You see what I'm saying to you? So, in that reality, you know, it's important to understand. Like this is this is how we should be able to reason with one another and come into that as well. You know, is important. You see what I'm saying? So, you get me? You know what I mean? So I think that's also important going forward as well. I had some other points, but I think I'm gonna do that. I'm probably gonna do that tomorrow. I'm gonna save some of my points for tomorrow. I have about 8 points I wanted to go through with the situation with Gabrielle Union, but I think I'll do that tomorrow as well and go through a few things, just answer a few of your questions. Let's just go through some of these questions. I'll make it a question time, so you guys can, you know, put your questions in. You know, I'll put it there. So just a bit of a question time so you can ask your questions. We've spoken quite eloquently and at length, I think. And then we'll talk a little bit before that as well. You know, so let's just go through some of the things as well. You know, am I going Kevin Samuels? Nah, never that, LT. Never that. Can't go Kevin Samuels at all. Got to keep a healthy balance. You know what I mean? Like, got to keep a healthy balance. So I will never go that far. Got to go to a healthy balance. You know, so that's important as well. You know, compromise and respect doesn't equal broke. Absolutely. Compromise and respect does not equal broke. Absolutely. Absolutely. That's an absolute true point as well. El Cid, absolutely. Listen, as for me, Beyonce is very expensive. But, you know, again, if I understood that my partner had that, if I met you and I know that you're a big ass Beyonce fan, you know, I'm gonna, you know, we can work that into the budget. We can say, babe, I don't know when Beyonce might come, so let's just put money aside in our miscellaneous. We'll put money in the miscellaneous, and if the miscellaneous account, you know, or budget part of it, maybe, you know, that might come up a little bit later, and maybe we might not have enough, and we might need to supplicate it a little bit and take a little bit of the savings. It's like, babe, okay, look, do you know what? We always knew that Beyonce was going to come up. We have miscellaneous, but it's not enough. Let's add a little bit for the savings so you can go to this concert, right? That's effective planning. Now, of course, depending on how much we're going to take from the savings, yeah, right? I totally understand that. You know, Otu said, you know, coach is she's going to a concert, has to have the balls to leave. And that may be also it too. The person may need to just leave as well. Like I said, because that level of disrespect is going to continue. And that's why I talk about attitudes of people and character. When people start showing you how they are, it's probably, if someone tells you they're going to do whatever they're going to do in this one thing, more than likely they're going to do whatever they're going to do in other areas too. You feel me? Naomi NYC said, this is why I should have women have separate account. This is why both men and women should have separate accounts, because the savings account that's joint is for joint ventures. That's the reason why we have a joint account. So both men and women should have a separate account, which is for their disposable income, their spending money, whatever, that they can do whatever they're with. I never asked my girlfriend, what's your disposable income? I don't want to know. I don't, whatever you spend on your disposable income, I don't really care. Just don't touch the one that we have in a joint savings. Don't do it. You know what I mean? Right? So whatever's in that joint income, whatever's in that disposable income of your account, I'm not questioning it, because we've already budgeted that you'd have money in that account. And the reality of the situation is, I'm never going to be asking, babe, what about the money in disposable income? I don't do them kind of things. Like, we can only work based upon the joint account money. Or if I said that, you know, I've got some savings that I want to bring into the situation, cool. But I'm never going to draw from you and be like, babe, that disposable income, you can't spend it. What? Why? Again, character is very important. You know, character is very important too. So, you know, just saying. That's also important. Ludwin said, I can't respect a man who complain about money. Can you expand as to why you can't respect a man who complains about money? Is there a story behind that? Is there history behind that? There must be some deeper reason as to why you can't respect a man who complains about money. And again, the word complaint here is to have a dissatisfaction for something. So if he's dissatisfied with the way that money is being utilized, tell me why you can't respect that man. If you just type that below, that'd be very important. Maybe I can even give you a link and you can come and have your say and have a conversation if you feel willing to as well. And if anybody else wants to have a conversation, by all means, let's have that conversation. I'll put the link in the chat and let's talk, let's converse, and have real conversations. Jay said, you can do whatever with your money, but if you treat the community pot as if it was your money, you'll be asking you to get beyond. And this is the reality of what I'm saying. You cannot treat the community pot like it's your money. It is our money. And the reality is, a lot of people are not team players. A lot of people are not very good at playing with others, and they are selfish in their leadership and selfish in their communication and selfish in the way they handle affairs of the family. As a leader, I want to make sure that when I'm taking decisions, sometimes I may not be the best, I may not be the good guy, but I have to remember at the forefront, is it for the family? Now, what I can't do, is take money out the joint account and be like, babe, I'm going to start a business. Or, babe, I need a joint account money and go and start a car and buy a car. No, what I need to do is say, babe, I really think we would, and this is, you have to almost work, when you have a joint account, you almost have to lobby for the money in the account like you would if you were a manager, lobbying for a budget allocation from your higher up end manager, right? And you, like, babe, listen, I think we need a brand new car right now. I think the kids will benefit from it. Being able to have a, full Range Rover, whatever. And I think would help us to be able to in this next few months, next few years, right? And I may even provide and say, babe, look, when I look at the financials, this is how it will work out. And she can say, babe, do you know what? But right now, I just don't think it's the right time. All right, cool. I have to respect it. I cannot go behind her back now and then take over. It doesn't matter whether I'm the leader or not, whether she considers me the head or not. I cannot just go and do it. Why? Because that's not how a partnership works. Now, there are going to be emergencies that maybe our financials need straight away, and we will have to come and convene at a meeting, and we should still be agreeing. Yeah? Yeah. Ludwin said he's worried about the wrong thing. He needs to find ways to make more money. I don't think that's necessarily the wrong thing at all. I think you work with the limitations that you have. You work with the skills that you have. Look, if you can only make that a certain amount of money and that's what you're working with, that's fine. You're working within your limit, and that's why you set yourself a budget. You're working with a limit, but that's why you set yourself a budget. You see what I'm saying to you? Yeah. So it's not that he necessarily needs to make more money. I mean, that's one solution, but that might take a little bit of time. It's easier to save than it is to make more money. So it may be the case of that they may need to look at other ways of cut costs and effects. Okay, so that's also another thing as well. That's also important. That must be taken into consideration as well. So let's look at that. That's also important as well. Absolutely, Tasha. Great question that is as well. That's a great question to ask somebody when you're in a relationship. This is important. You have to, understand what is your relationship with finances and experience, because that's guiding your perception of what's happening in real time. And that's guiding your attitude, which is going to affect your real-time response into something. So it's important to understand the experiences. Yes, absolutely right. When it comes to money as well, right? And so, I said this before. I mean, my relationship with money has changed over the years. And as I've come into more abundance, I have a different mindset when it comes to money. That doesn't mean I spend recklessly, but I may spend some money and I'll be cool with it. You know what I mean? Or also, as what I look at in a way as well, in terms of even just being more generous. I mean, I was generous before. I was generous before. I mean, the Lord was trying to work with me. I was generous before, but it's not everything that I consider to be of worth to me. And I think that's very important. What I consider to be of worth was not what other people consider to be of worth. Like, I can easily spend money on food. Oh, listen, brother, I can spend money on food. But ask me to buy something like clothes that are hella expensive. I'm like, I don't know if I can do that. But I can spend it on food. You know, I'll quick spend 40 quid on food. You know what I mean? But then 40 pounds on a shirt, I don't know. And but I can get more out of the wearing a shirt than I can of the food. But the reality is, what do you value? The reality is, what is your experience? And I think that's also important. You know, that's very, very honest, a very important part as well. You know, and so that is also part of it as well, you know. Lulu Bird 86. However, in marriage, total separation of finances creates more problems with marriage mindset, honestly. Yeah, I hear you. You know, I definitely hear that aspect as well. And you know, I definitely agree with that part as well. So don't cape for these men. Oh, okay. Said Beyonce hasn't been in concert in years, ongoing. He says, I can't take the money out, then give me the money from your personal account then. Do you know what's so funny? I had a similar situation in a relationship like this, and that's partly the reason why the relationship ended. I'll give you the honest truth. Because this is not about money. This is about power. And you're usurping it. Yeah, and you're going to do the same thing to me later on. It's a pattern of behavior. If a man does this, listen to me very carefully, ladies. If a man just takes money out of a joint account to do whatever he feels like he can do, he's going to do the same to you. It's a pattern of behavior. You feel you have the right to do whatever you want to do, right? And if that's the case, if you don't, you're now asking me to give it my personal account. Does that make sense? We don't have the money for it. I've told you we don't have the money for it. We're going forward. We don't have the money for it. And so if you're a person that's going to start throwing a tantrum over it, you're showing your character. This is what I'm trying to say to you. Like, this is why I said about men and women need to pay attention at the beginning of relationships. People have characters that don't work with your character. People have behaviors that don't work in alignment with your values and your attitudes. And when you start to see it, you need to nip it in the bud. And it's not always that the person is bad. Their way of thinking does not work with yours. You know what I mean? Their way of thinking does not work with yours. So personally, yeah. You know, it just in the situation. But even though you said that you wouldn't do that to somebody who makes less than you, Queen, your how you treat somebody who makes less than you is also how you treat somebody who makes more than you. You're gonna have the same effect. You're going to have the same effect. You know what I mean? You're gonna have literally the same effect. Your behavior's patterned. Dahlia, I see you. I'll bring you up in a sec. Your behavior's patterned. So what you did for that broke person, how you treat him, you're going to do for that person who's also rich. You're not going to change it now. What? Because he makes more money than you. You're gonna change it. No, there's gonna be something else that's gonna take away your respect. Respect across the board for human beings, an essential quality in general. I don't disrespect you because you make less than me. I don't disrespect you because you're a woman. And let's say you can't have children. I'm not gonna start disrespecting you. You know what I mean? Like my respect for you, okay, as a human in general. If you're telling me your respect is going to be governed by how much money he makes, you're going to do something in a relationship which is going to show a disrespect, regardless of whether he makes money or not. It's a pattern of behavior. But like I said, Ludwin, come and have your say. Look, I put the link in the chat. You know, just come and have a say. I put a link in the chat. I've pinned it up. Come and say a piece. You know what I mean? Dahlia, talk to me. What are you saying? Baby, I can't hear you, baby. Is it just me? I can't hear you, sis. Dahlia, are you there? I cannot hear you. Is it just me? I can't hear you, babe. Oh, okay. So hold on. Okay, cool. No worries. But almost, if you want to join, if you want to have your say, guys, but almost click on the link. I pinned it up.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you, babe.
Okay, cool. All right. So, good morning or evening or whatever time zone that we're all in. Um, so I think this is a topic that you had mentioned before a few weeks ago, right? About the Beyonce tickets. This the same one? Okay. So I don't like how this conversation is going in the chat. I feel like for whatever reason, we have this thing where if a person makes less money than you, we assign lesser value to them as if they don't work the same amount of hours, which is crazy to me. This man has a stable job. He's working every day. He's agreed to he's agreed to marry you. He's agreed to go in on a home with you. You guys have both agreed upon a plan where y'all are going to put money into a pot that's going towards a wedding for the both of you. It's not like it's something just for him where he's getting like, I don't know, a truck or something or a speedboat or whatever that's just for him. It's for the both of you guys. And so I don't understand why now, because it's something that you want, all of a sudden now we feel like we need to go toss the fact that he has less money at him as if it's an insult. I don't like that, especially because with incomes the way that it is, that stuff can change on a dime, right? And I mean, 5 years ago, I was making $30,000. I mean, 3 times as much now. It that's not a flex. That's really down to God. There's nothing I did, but the idea behind that is that income levels can change quickly. We don't know what this man's doing right now as of this moment. We have no idea what his training is. We don't know if he's trying to get more money for himself. Even if he wasn't, the fact remains that he's putting in the same percentage of income that this woman is, and she agreed to marry him knowing that. If you didn't like that, you should have said no to him from the beginning, ma'am. You didn't. But now it's a problem. That's number one. And then number two, it sounds to me like she has poor planning and a lack of discipline. And if I were him, I would have a problem with that too, because right now it's Beyonce tickets, but what is it going to be further down the line? The way that she's moving and operating with this account, they're never going to be able to reach their goal because she's always going to have her hands in it. And if she keeps doing that, that's going to be financial abuse. And we talk about this all the time when it comes to the men and how they move and operate with money. But then when it's a woman, now it's not an issue. No, we need to keep that same energy. I don't like that. So yeah, those are my two issues with this whole thing.
Appreciate that, Dahlia. Lulu Bird 86, go for it, baby. Want to hear your thoughts, baby.
Well, as far as the conversation goes, my problem comes in way before the disagreement about the money. Why are we putting money into an account together when we're not married? That's just ludicrous in and of itself. That's why you don't make married moves as non-married people.
Agreed.
However, I do think there's something to the mindset that comes along with earning, like expecting a woman who she's strived to get an education and she's done well for herself to now take the role of a subordinate in a relationship and not have some kind of conflicting views on how she should be spending the money she earns it's just contrary to human nature. I think there is something to the idea of a woman being in a feminine role, like living in her femininity fully the way through, for her to be able to really take on that role of submission. So I think that part of the mindset that gets overlooked, especially I think in our Black community, where we as women have always earned. It was like slavery ended, now go get a job working for somebody else as a domestic. So we have a very hard time molding to that role of husband provider, wife, the one being provided for. And even if you get a job to help out, it should be a job to help out. It doesn't mean, okay, I'm making all the money, but he's making all the rules. So I think that's where we a lot of times struggle in our relationships, is because as somebody who I'm married, been married for a lot of years, I was with my husband as the through all of his stages of life. Now he's the earner. I stay at home and I live what I guess they call now the soft life. But I was the earner for several years. And for all of those years, it was hard for me to really have respect because I saw myself as a breadwinner. I saw myself as the person providing for the family, the person breaking my neck, the person cooking, the person doing all of the things. And it was hard for me to look at him and say, oh, but I should be submitted to his desire and will. What are you talking about? I'm working 12-hour shifts. I don't got time to talk to him about submission or whatever his will is. So I think we need to look a little more at that. And the answer isn't just separate accounts, because with separate accounts still has that separate mindset. This is my money and you can't tell me what to do with it. And that's not helpful in marriage. Now we're trying to cross over mountains that we built back then when there was a great disparity in earnings. Now there is a total disparity in earnings and it's all in his favor, but also aligns with a marriage mindset of husband being the head of the household. And I was blessed enough to have somebody that just sees me as an equal through and through. So we don't really have money conversations, let alone problems and issues, because he knows what I did for him and he respects that. But everybody's not like that. Men these days want you to bring the table to the table. But that's that on that.
Appreciate that, Lulu Bird, as well. I think you touched on a very important piece. I'm going to pick up just for us as men. It's intriguing because I think when we have these conversations, as men, we do say this, right? That when we're not in that financial provider role, let me put it this way. This is why men date down financially. Because what you described there is exactly what men feel, and women will tell you, "No, I don't feel that way. No, I wanted to support you. I loved you. I cared." No, you felt you are feeling some type of way about it. And I think if we're really honest and true about it, I think we can save a few more other relationships out there. Because honestly, as a man, I'll tell you straight, I don't think men should be dating any woman that makes considerably more than them personally. Because what you just described is exactly what happens. You start feeling some type of way about the fact that he may not be pulling his weight or whatever. And regardless why that is, whether it's patriarchy, whether it's whatever, it doesn't make a difference. Either way, you feel the way you do. And that's a real thing, right? So I'm saying that for those men out there, I'm saying to you personally, if it starts out that way, I wouldn't be encouraging you to be dating women that make considerably more than you. Because naturally, that feeling starts to kick in. Personally, just me personally, I'm sure some people can do it, but the majority of times it does start to kick in. And for the man too, he starts feeling insecure about his position too. So it's a two-pronged thing. It's not just you; it's for the man too. We start feeling insecure. You might feel like, can I respect him? I'm not about to have that conversation with somebody. Like, if you respect me or not, you know what I mean? So if we're not in the same financial brackets, we don't need to play this ball game. It's not necessary. I'm gonna stay in my lane. I'm gonna stick with the chicks that, for me financially don't make as much as me, because it helps, or make equal to me. Because whenever you make considerably more, that's gonna start a problem. But you mentioned something, just to clear it up, Lulu, before I go to Ludwin. Just want to clarify what you just said. When you said you were earning more, were you earning considerably more, or do you mean that he wasn't in a job? Because that sounds like two different things.
In my case, we've been together since we were 19 and 20. So we've been through all building stages. We're in our 30s now.
That makes
sense. There's been jobless periods. There's been earning disparity periods. There's been earning the same periods. I've supported him through school, military, all kinds of things. So for us, I heard you say that. I was like, oh, I want to clear that up. It's not a matter of he started dating someone who had more money than him. It was more or less, we were young together, building together. And when I was in that survival mindset of, I got to earn, I got to make, I got to get my way out of poverty, it was a hard shift coming out of the survival mindset of being able to provide for myself and get it on my own into what marriage was supposed to look like. So, I mean, when you're in survival, fight or flight mode, just doing it yourself, you don't see it as I'm earning more, they're earning more, this person's doing this, because you're not even thinking about that. You're thinking about paying these bills, how we're going to eat. So it's not, everybody doesn't have the benefit of being able to date in their 30s and see the full scope of your options and what's available, what you will have and what you won't have.
So essentially, man, them marry early. and I mean, because on the real thing, that I definitely take that weight as well. Like, you can have that grace because you guys started early, and I wouldn't expect you to have that grace if you start at 30, that race, and he's not in a position financially. I would say get your stuff together. So I don't disagree with what you're saying at all. I totally understand that particular perspective as well. Question was coming, but it's gone. So I'll go to Ludo. Ludo, go for it. And I'll come back to you, Ludo. I want to ask a question.
Hi, Gojo. I can't stay long because I have a Zoom call in 5 minutes. But which question you want me to answer? Because you pulled up a couple different of my comments, or you just made a comment in general?
You make your comment in general. Whatever you're feeling,
Okay.
you let us have it. You got 5
so
minutes. So go for it, all 5.
I remember when you initially brought this topic up in the video. I believe she was a big girl on camera from my recollection. My issue is because I know a lot of BBW women do get taken advantage of a lot by men, especially when they make decent money, when they make pretty good money based on that relationship in particular. I'm always iffy when a woman puts a whole lot more money into a joint account than a man is, because I have a hard time trying to figure out, like, is this a man for real, or is he looking for a cash cow, or like someone to get over on? Um, a lot of times we like to cape for men to stay where they are just because he's a decent man. No, I would like for you, instead of telling me, hey, I cannot do this in this account, how about we came up with other ways to make more money? That way it wouldn't feel like we are subtracting from what we currently have. That way you don't feel like we are missing anything by me using this for a social event, right? Because we can always make the money back up. Because if I have a decent job like this, very few times during the year I'm going to lose the job unless I do something wrong at the job, right? Or I get fired because they are removing a whole lot of people versus just me getting fired, right? So in my perspective, I personally would not date someone who makes 3 times less than me. However, like, I don't understand when men complain about, oh, you need to be doing this, this, and this, and this, and this with the money. I'm like, well, I earn this money. If I want to enjoy myself, I should be able to enjoy myself once in a while. It's not like I'm spending the money every month on wild things. This is like a once in a lifetime issue. And it's not like I can't replace it the following month because I make quite a bit. And in that perspective, I feel like there should be more of a conversation with it. So if we take this out, when can we replace it back? Like, what can we do to replace it back? Like, do you need to have a second job? Do you need to start doing your business on the side? Like, start slowly. Like, how else can you make more money to get to my level? Because I don't want to have conversation about money where I feel like I might get to a point where I might disrespect you with my words. So before even getting to that conversation, I'm going to the concert because that's what I'm choosing to do, because that's something I want to do for myself. Now, if you want to do something for yourself, I'm not going to stop you either. Because every now and then we should have things for ourselves in a relationship. I'm not going to stop you from doing something that makes you feel nice or like for you to create memories with. However, it's the wanting someone to be controlled just because we are saving towards a goal. No, we're saving, yes. We can still keep saving, but I'm going to the concert. That's it.
Okay. So you're just going to take the money out of the joint account that you agreed to put money into, which you chose
Yes.
a man who makes 3 times less than you to be in?
I'm going.
When you come back, let us know. We'll be here for now, so you're good. No, I appreciate you. But no, I hear what you're saying, Lude. I hear what you're saying, and I think to touch on that, I think what I think to emphasize the point that she's making, I disagree, and I'll say why I disagree. I disagree in the sense of the fact that, you know, before it gets to that point, that should have been a conversation before. And I keep saying it again, the concert isn't the issue; it's what it represents. And these are opportunities to showcase how we feel and what we do when we feel these kind of things, right? And so a relationship where we are working, and again, it's interesting because it's interesting. It's our money when it comes to the man making more. When a woman makes more, it's not our money anymore. You know what I mean? When I say that, I mean that loosely, not literally saying that generally. I'm saying that in the loose terms, in the sense of like it's not seen as that same way. We're a team. If we're up, like Lulu was saying, Lulu give a great example. She had to take over at some points, right? But it's for the team. It's not for solo, it's for the team. And she has to do what's best for the team. And I think what's important here to understand, you know, in essence, is that, and I always say this, well, if you actually really understand money, it's easier to save money than it is to make more money. Making more money is and I say that in the sense of the quickest thing to do, right? And not everybody, and I think it's interesting because I think we always talk from a perspective that is one of privileged perspective, right? When you look at the stats, a majority of people are average. I always feel like this conversation goes on to the wildest things. Most of us are average. You average incomers, okay? You're gonna have an average life, middle class at best. And do you know what that means? You're probably both gonna be paying some bills. That's the average person, right? Now, there are a set of people that are in between the middle that, you know, they're not sure whether they want to be the top end. They don't want to be at the bottom end. But the majority of people are average earners, meaning we're probably going to have to work together to pay some bills. My chest is chesting down, like that little line there. You know what I mean? So we are average earners. And so I feel like sometimes the conversation goes to this like wild place. But for instance, as she said herself, you know, she would take her money out. We didn't get to reply back to her. I would have said to her, well, why didn't you have money saved in your normal account? Why did you have all your money in a joint account? That's what budgeting and a good budgeter does. You know what I mean? But anyway, let me leave that point there because I think we beat that particular point. Her particular point, that woman. I've kind of said it. Dahlia, jump back in for me. If you have another point, jump in back in for me.
Yeah, so she kind of blew my mind with that one. I will say this much, as far as the average earners thing. I watched enough Dave Ramsey to know that even people who make over 100K, they are in debt. Let's not be fooled because they're rolling around in a BMW or a Mercedes, okay? They are underwater on those car payments right now. So this idea that because all of a sudden you guys make more money, that now you will be financially responsible with that money is a bit ridiculous. If you can't even handle the little bit that you do have, if you're not a good steward with that money right now, you are not going to be a good steward as you get more and more money. At that point, it's no longer a blessing. It's becoming a bit of a curse. And I know this from personal experience. So I'll put that to the side. The second thing I will say, and I understand Lewin's concerns as far as making sure that there's reciprocity with both parties and making sure that nobody's getting taken advantage of and there's no predators here. And unfortunately, we don't really know for sure exactly the income levels for both parties. But there's a difference between like an aggregate dollar amount versus percentage. So even though the woman is making 3 times more than the man, that does not mean that percentage-wise that they're not putting in the same amount. If they both agree to put in 20%, that 20% is just as much of a hardship for him as it is for you, based off of what his income level is, right? And so he's still got the same amount of skin in the game when it comes to this wedding, this house, and you both agree to it. So that's 2. And then the third thing is, and this is relating back to my first point, I got myself in a major debt in part because, well, not in part, but mostly because I had poor discipline and poor stewardship over the little bit that I did have. And at one point, I was working 3 jobs to dig myself out of this debt. And my body was breaking down on me because I didn't give myself any rest, and I didn't give myself any room to do anything for me. All of my money went towards paying off debt. And I was able to pay it off fairly quickly. But I will say that I do think that there's room to have even just a little bit of money just for you. And that's why I was saying that she was a poor planner, because she didn't think about that. Now, but that doesn't mean that you take that money out from the savings account. It just means that you need to set a little bit aside that's just for you, so you can do what you want with it. And that's conversations that she and her man need to be having, where it's like, okay, well, we both agree we're going to put this money here towards whatever your mutual goals are. And then you put a little bit of tuck away money aside for yourself, so you can go to Beyonce, or if you need to take your second job or whatever to go get that done, because you love Beyonce just that much. I don't even love Bruno Mars just that much. But I mean, if you do, okay. But to go into your savings account is banana sandwich to me. I'm sorry. That is not okay. That actually might be a deal breaker for me if somebody did that to me. No, unacceptable.
You know what's so wild about the situation? I remember, and I've done it prematurely, so I can imagine what I agree what Lulu was kind of saying. So I had a situation where I was looking to get married with a person, and we had a joint account. We sat down, we budgeted. They had, and I love budgets, yeah. And I'm very flexible with them, because I understand that you need some disposable income to be able to spend money, and we had a joint account that we put money into. I still had other savings as well, so I wasn't really. It's not fast, but it was money to put towards, I think towards, getting the wedding sorted and stuff like that, right? So we did it. We did good for the first few months, but the person's discipline in how they spend is what caused issue, because they can't control how they spend. The joint account became the place to start retrieving their money back from their account. That's why I said it goes deeper, right? Because you had enough disposable income, but the problem was the way that you monitor your spending and the way that you handle your finances. If you poorly mismanage it, you'll find yourself dipping into your savings. You'll find yourself in that space.
True.
Right? So then I was looking at the account and I was like, the money is just reducing. Like, I'm seeing a person and they're just taking out their money. You know what I mean? They're taking out their particular money. Right. But I'm looking at them going, so when we had a conversation, maybe like 4 months, when I started seeing the money going out of it, I say 4 months, but yeah, about 4 months in, because she would sometimes put the money back in. Right. We started, we had a conversation, and I was like, yo, what is going on that, you're taking the money out of situations? Like, I just got a lot of things that keep coming on my way, and et cetera, et cetera. I was like, okay, so what things are actually coming your way, so we understand where you're coming from and what we can work? Because I've factored into it your debts as well that you have. I've factored into the fact that, disposable income is going to be needed, how much you normally kind of spend on that. So I'm looking, I'm going, why are you still breaking the budget? And it's like, yeah, there's some other things, that kept coming out. The truth of the matter is, it's not other things. She's just, when it comes to spending, some people like freedom. And sometimes if you don't have a level of discipline when it comes to spending, you tend to over commit. Plus, some of the I think the difficulty also too is that sometimes I think sometimes the difficulty also for people is that when you then set them a budget, they feel constricted. So even though if the budget is still a good budget, they feel constricted. It's like, now you're telling me how to do things. It's like, no, I'm trying to help you because that's what you asked for. But if you don't want to be disciplined in that area, or you feel like you're being constricted, the person finds it very hard. And I understand, because not everyone's got to that same place at the right time. Again, it's how we see money, and it's how we view money, and it's how we believe what our beliefs are around money as well. It's something that I had to learn later on. So, it was a big thing. And it was not that the money that you're taking out was going to kill the account or anything. It's just that I keep saying, I'm like, you keep doing it. And before we had done the budget, the person was loose with money. They were always in arrears. Always. So I was like, how can you always be in arrears? That don't make no sense. So this was this was something that was problematic before the budget was in place. So this is something that needs to be addressed on a root issue with a lot of people when it comes to how they behave with money. So it's not the problem that you spend it. It's the problem when you overspend and you're not committed to actually realizing that you have to be disciplined. And sometimes that lack of discipline is actually coming from a fact. It's a bit like those of us who comfort eat. I comfort eat and I can overeat. And the reality is some people they comfort spend and they overspend. You know what I mean? So there's a deeper rooted issue that comes with that sometimes as well. So, you know, that's also conversations that one has to come with their partner, because people that are reckless when it comes to money are destructive. And both men and women can do this, right? So it's something that has to be discussed and talked about, you know, as well. So, yeah.
I will say that I think what you're touching on requires a level of self-awareness that I don't know that many people have. And I say this because I'm just now, this is after 2 years of therapy, understanding exactly why I make some of the decisions that I make, because it does affect the my spending habits. And so, and if you want to have the conversation with your partner about money, you need to be really clear on, number one, like you said, about what money looks like to you. Is it freedom or is it safety? For me, it's freedom, which is why I said that for me, it was important that I had like a little bit of free money to do with whatever I wanted, because it allowed me to be more comfortable putting so much time and effort into having multiple jobs and throwing money at debt, right? So I think that the first step would be to turn that light switch on that leads to self-awareness, so you can actually figure out what it is that you want and how you actually operate as a person, really and truly, not your ideal self, not what you would like to be, right? Because I used to make budgets based off of what I thought it was supposed to look like rather than what my life actually was, and I'm screwing myself over. So you got to be radically honest about who you actually are, what your life really does look like, what you want your money to do for you, so you can bring that to the table in a conversation with your partner, and then you can actually get some results from there. Because otherwise, it's a moot conversation at that point. It's going nowhere.
I appreciate it. Just want to be fair, because I want to say this. Finance man, you got one more reckless comment before I ban you. I don't like people like you. I don't like your energy, and it's giving a really bad energy. But I want to give you a chance, but keep fucking around, you're going to find out. Just going to tell you straight. I don't like the energy you're bringing, and you're on the verge of being blocked. I don't like trolls and people who try to descend away from the conversation. So if you want to continue, but I will block you and you won't have access to this channel. All right. So if you want to come and have a conversation, but be mature about it. I ain't got time for your games. Lulu, continue. Talk to us, sis. What's your thoughts?
I agree with what Dahlia says. There is no mathematical equation that's going to get rid of poor mindset. I think finance is something we don't talk about in therapy probably enough. I was having conversations with my family about hoarding, because growing up in poverty, it can contribute to this scarcity mindset that causes hoarding. So a lot of times people living in clutter, you don't realize it's because of your mindset or your relationship with things growing up, not having them, not having enough things, not knowing when you're going to get the next things, that causes you to keep things unnecessarily. And that can boil over into like arguments about cleanliness and all kinds of other arguments you're having in marriage or in relationships in current time. There really is something linked to childhood. So I think people really do need to get into therapy, figure out all of their triggers from when they were 8 and how they're living those out in their adult life, because that can save so many arguments. A lot of time when you're arguing in marriage or in a serious relationship, you're really arguing with the person's 8-year-old self. And you're arguing with that person's 8-year-old self's relationship with money as well. And even on the flip side, you have a person who may want to spend because they make it and they feel free to do so. But you have a person that may be really wanting to control the account and the savings because they have a scarcity mindset of, if we lose it, we're not going to get it back. So just because it seems positive that, managing your finances is a good thing to do, that person could really be harboring some kind of control issues that are also going to wreak havoc on a relationship. Because if I don't feel secure in being able to spend ever, even if I know we have it on paper, what does that do for me? How do I feel freedom in a relationship with a person like that?
Yeah, I love that point as well. And I think, I think what's key about it as well is, and I think going back to that Beyonce situation, which is why I was saying that sometimes as well as an individual, we may not understand the gravity of what that means to the other person. You know what I mean? And I think that's why as a man too, I have to be open to the fact that something means something to you. You know what I mean? And so when it means something to you, I may have to compromise on an area and say, actually, because I know it means this much to you, we can break protocol on this aspect and say, okay, we can do something a little bit different than usual. And I think that's what's most important. What's important here is that individuals learn about the other person. Because like I said earlier on, if I know that you are a diehard Beyonce fan, more than likely, if we make decent amount of money and we're having it in a savings, I'm probably gonna say, babe, you know what? I know you love Beyonce. Let's just get like I'm willing to invest in your happiness in that aspect because I know how much it means to you. You know what I mean? And in regards to our goals, maybe we can discuss it and we say, actually, you know what? It's not gonna derail us that much, right? Yeah, we can, it's not going to derail us that much. We can put it back in, or we can work a little bit harder next month. That's why I said about lobbying. And that's why I said about people that are in partnerships with people need to be able to learn how to be able to communicate, because I cannot be a dictator in the relationship. So there are going to be times, yes, I may say, no, babe, this is not going to work. But there's also going to be times where I've got to be open, and there can be lobbying that happens between the two people. And in fact, even one of the things that people do is negotiate. Babe, listen, just if you can do this for me, I will do something for you. You know what I mean? Like, and people do that in relationships because, of course, again, we are in a partnership. We love one another. We're supposed to love one another. We know we're trying to walk together, and so sometimes people will lobby for something, and that's okay. If it makes sense for you in that moment, then that's okay, But yeah, it's never easy in that aspect because obviously you want to meet your goals and stuff, but not at the expense of your partner's complete happiness in general. I don't want to remove that aspect. We have to be able to learn how to be able to we have to learn how to be able to maneuver one another as well. So yeah, I definitely hear that point, Ludo, as well. Any other points from the ladies?
Nope. I feel like I touched on everything I wanted to get out.
Ludo, any other thoughts?
I think I touched on everything as well. Just what you said, a sense of security comes from knowing that I can depend on you to provide for my needs, or to, even if I'm the one who provided the money, you saying, okay, this is something that's important to you. We're going to try to make it happen. If I'm in a relationship, regardless of how much we make, and I don't have any kind of security, be it financial or just knowing that I can depend on you to provide for what I want or need, it's never going to work.
So if you feel like you can't rely on him financially to take over, is that what you're kind of saying? Just want to make it very clear. Don't want to.
Not financially to take over, but if I need something, we want our man to be there to provide it, whether that's a ticket to a concert, our tire getting changed, changing a light bulb. It could be the smallest thing. If I don't feel like there's any security here, yeah, we can sit at a table and make out a budget plan like two CEOs, like nobody's business. But I think for a romantic relationship, there needs to be a sense of security and a soft place to lie. And I think a lot of times when women are putting up these arguments and fights about money, it's not even a matter of we make a certain amount of money. It's a matter of I don't feel secure here. Like, yeah, I feel financially secure, but I could do that by myself. I need to feel like I can lie down in your lap and know that you have my best interest because you want to take care of me.
Mm. And you know what's interesting? I think I was having a conversation with the UK panel too in regards to what you were saying, right? While that's the lady side, the men's side also too is I want to know that you got my back in those times when I don't have it. And that doesn't mean necessarily you having the money. That means you got my back. Because also the same thing is we're not feeling safe either. As I said, both men and women don't feel safe in relationships oftentimes. And oftentimes it's because there is emotional wounds before we got into a relationship. So sometimes in relationship too, the men also wondering, will you have my back? So if I can't do what you're saying, Lulu, if I can't now financially take care of you, let's say, and you didn't say financially alone. I'm saying financially because men put such a great emphasis on that in terms of their role. If I can't, for instance, say I can't financially provide in a way that you have a soft landing in that area, right? Am I going to be disrespected because I can't do that? Am I going to be looked at differently because I can't do that? Am I now going to be removed as a head of leadership because I can't make the money that I was making beforehand? Or you know what I'm saying? Or if I don't make more than you? You know, we also have that fear as well of being taken advantage of, right? Or being in a place where we're going to be disrespected too. And it's one of our greatest fears as well. So I definitely hear what you're saying. So I see fear on both sides. And I see what happens when people have that fear because they didn't try to control scenarios, which actually is what causes even more tension in relationships as well. Especially for I think for the guys, I think especially for the guys as well, is that oftentimes for the men, when they do start to feel fear, we do some really dumb stuff. You know what I mean? Like we can do some dumb stuff. Not all men, but I'm saying some men can really do some dumb stuff if we make some points like where we're like, we feel fear, then he might, and this is why some men will go and end up having one side chick or some stupid girl who treats him like a quote unquote king, but it's because of the fear. You know what I mean? So yes, Lulu, you opened your mic. You want to say something?
Oh, I was saying, people say women want love, men want respect. Women want security and men want respect. So for women, security doesn't necessarily even have to look like you being able to provide it financially. If I'm going out and getting it, that's fine. But now I don't feel secure when you're asserting authority over something I earned because I feel this is a need for me and I want you to provide it, even if that you providing it just means you saying yes. Or even if you providing it just looks like you use my money and go get it for me. But I think there has to be that sense of security in order for a woman to provide respect. And that doesn't matter. It doesn't even matter income. Like there's women who are out earn men, but as long as that person's cutting the grass and doing something to show that I can provide you with the things you need, they feel okay and they feel secure in that, because security is not just financial. It's knowing I can depend on you. If I say I need something, you either come up with a solution to help me get it. Like, oh babe, you earned that bonus last week. How about you use the bonus to do X, Y, and Z? Women want that kind of guidance and leadership. And from that, we do give respect. If that makes sense. I know respect's important to men, but we have to, as women, we have to feel secure to be able to give respect. And those side women you go find, they don't give respect or anything else or any kind of admiration. They're just probably void of brain cells and they're doing whatever it takes to get the attention they need because they're attention hungry, narcissistic women that they'll tell you anything. You're just pouring into an empty vessel. But whatever helps you, get your load off, I suppose.
I definitely hear that. Darling, what's your thoughts?
No, I agree with that. It made me think of my own family where, we've had issues. We've had income levels go up and down. People lose their job. I don't want to go into that. But I will say that through it all, my parents, they didn't turn on each other. I actually asked them, like, did you guys ever fight or anything when these troubles came? No, they didn't. They banded together as teammates and they helped each other out. My stepdad is a hustler, and so he got another job and he just figured out a way to pull the money together. And there was no, oh, this is your fault, this is my fault, this is your money, this is my money. It's our money. It's what's best for the family. If there's anything left over, great. but first and foremost, the family will be taken care of. And I feel like, to Lulu's point, that's what us women want. And so you want to be able to see like you have a teammate in this. And so God forbid when the troubles do come, there's going to be somebody who's looking out for you the same way that you would look out for them. And obviously, if you're dating, you're not going to see that. I mean, you're not obviously going to have that history to fall back on, but you can see that in their own lives with their friends and family. You can see that in how they carry themselves when stressors hit. Like, what do they do in those kind of situations? Because it'll give you a good idea of what you can expect should you guys join together in marriage and you guys start your own family. What you expect to come.
Jeff, welcome to the convo. Talk to me.
Yeah, I'm definitely loving the convo right now, Coach. I just seen the title that if I make the more money, I can do whatever I want. And I was just listening to the ladies on the panel. It's a tough one. It's a tough one because it seems that a lot of times many issues stem from lack of finances or people not being able to steward the money that they actually have, people not being able to save. And then again, because we tie how much a person has to who he is or who she is, basically your identity now comes more from your income rather than just simply your intrinsic value. It's a lot more difficult to actually have these type of conversations. So sometimes I wonder how often when it comes to budgeting are these conversations even had in relationships. Sometimes people, I think when it comes to money, it presents a level of freedom, being able to do what you want with it, get what you want with it. The fact that especially if you're someone who starts comparing yourself to other people based on what you see on the TL, what you see on Instagram, what you see on TikTok, people living a particular life. And if you have your own insecurities and you want to start living a particular lifestyle that everybody else is living, and then now when you get into a relationship and you have someone coming to you to say, oh, we should budget, it does become restrictive because no one has ever challenged you on your thought process as to, what, maybe you can save for a rainy day. Maybe you could do this a bit differently. And it comes across as someone, oh, you're just telling me what I'm supposed to do. So when someone feels that their freedoms are being restricted, they're less likely to want to negotiate or come to a peaceful resolve. So I think my question is that, Coach, how would you have constructive conversations with people in that kind of way if you want to be in a relationship and you want to still have a level of freedom, but you don't want that person to feel, oh, you're restricting me. How would you have that dialogue with that person, man or woman?
I think first and foremost, good question, bro, as well. I think for me personally, how I'm looking to approach it is first of getting understanding. So again, number one, what is your relationship with money? Number one. Number two, when I say relationship in terms of like, is it freedom or is it security for you? I think number two also as well, it is what is a vision that you have in terms of future? Because I think that's where the problem really starts, right? Because when we have the same vision aligned, we can then start to kind of tie that into finances. We can then go to more micro aspects. So what's the macro version of what we're talking about here, which is what's our vision? Do you have a vision? Because some people have a vision in terms of lifestyle. So if you have a certain lifestyle in mind, I need to make sure that you and I have the same idea when it comes to lifestyle, because maybe I have a more conservative aspect, maybe you have a more lavish aspect, or maybe you have a more conservative, I have more lavish. I think that's a key aspect too. I want to get that understanding from you. So I think initially it's all about asking some questions to kind of find out what your position is on money and where you're coming from, so that we can then come to the table and then kind of begin to rejig and refig and build our model, our own personal model in terms of how we're going to handle finances. And then I think for when you're talking about budgets, again, I always say this, like a good budgeter understands that there is going to be some form of restriction, but it's also going to be an opportunity for freedom, which is, look, we gotta be honest and say to ourselves, What are our goals? Okay, if we've got goals here, this is what we need to make those goals work. Okay, great. Now, out of those goals, we need money for you to have a good time or freedom, because you need to have money to be able to spend on yourself or be able to spend on other friends or whatever. You need that aspect as well, right? So I think then sitting down with that person and actually going through with, and this is what I did with one of my exes. We actually sat down and went through what that would look like and how much financially, and we would sit down and say, okay, does this sound like a valuable amount of money that would work for you right now? Okay, let's say 50 quid for this. Does it work for you? Okay, I mean, you think you need a bit more? Right? Okay, let's stretch it a little bit to 100. Let's stretch it to 100 maybe, because maybe that's what you need in this area. But it's again also about having it's a gentle conversation in an aspect, right? And it's about having that conversation, not a dictatorship, but a conversation with a person. And sometimes, and not even sometimes, if you are a true leader in the area of finance, right? And you understand money and you understand how it impacts people, the way you approach it should make the person should generally make the person feel at ease at the way you're coming at it. Generally, not always, but generally. And so when you sit down with a person and say, "Hey, look, this will make it work in this aspect, and you can have this kind of money to spend, be free, do whatever you want to do, and go about whatever you want to go about. And this is going to be money that you got to save. This is money for miscellaneous. So if anything happens, it's a just in case. Here's the money for that too, right?" So I think it's about having gentle conversation, understanding where they're coming from, asking more questions than dictating, and then having that sit down 1-to-1 and really kind of mapping out, in budgets and stuff like that, how that's going to look like. Because sometimes people also talking about it is cool, but when they start seeing it, that's when the stress kicks in or when the freedom kicks in for somebody. And so there has to be, an allowance of saying, hey, you know what? This is not going to be forever. There may be times where it changes. You may make more money and we may expand it. You may make less money. We may have to constrict it, or there may be a time where you need to withdraw some funds from somewhere else and put it in here. And that's okay. And that's not a problem. In fact, one of my exes, she actually said, listen, I know I'm not going to do this properly, so I'm going to give you the money. I was like, whoa, you trust me that? All right, cool. I'll hold on to it. Because you know how I am with money. When it comes to money, me, I don't play with my money. I will save it. Yeah. I don't like spending it. I will save it for you. Yeah. So, and that could be a case. But again, of course, I'm not saying that for everybody, because again, if you're not married, that is not something I would necessarily advocate for. But yes, that's how I would go about the conversation. Lulu, you've opened your mic, go for it. Maybe you give us a different perspective from the ladies.
I think one thing that is important that you missed, all those things you talked about are great. But I think observation and discernment should be our first key indicator, and we should always lead with that. I think especially this generation of online daters, they've been on Bumble brushing up all their elevator interview answers of what sounds good as far as finance and dreams and all these things go, but their lifestyle deviates from what they say they want and what their mouth says. And that's people not just in dating in general, people in business, people in everything, as well as what does your family life look like? And then when you peep things about their family, how do they feel about the way their family operates? Like in me and my situation, one of the things I noticed about my husband's family that wasn't present in my family was a lot of borrowing money. In my family, nobody borrows money. Nobody asks for anything. It's very pride-filled. Everybody will just fall hungry before they actually call and say something's wrong. But in his family, a lot of money was being changing hands, and there was a whole lot of this person owing that person. And I noticed that, and that was conversations we had to have and build mechanisms in place, because if you think it's okay to borrow money and I don't think it's okay for money to leave my house, that's going to eventually create a problem. So we need to create you got to take care of your mama light bill fund and it not hit me over my head unexpectedly. So I think it's important to see people's dynamics interacting even with their friends. If somebody keeps coming to you complaining about how they gave their homeboy $200 and he never gave it back to him, okay, I see you're not a good steward of your money. You keep just giving it to people. That's something you got to put in your mind bank, and don't just depend on what they're going to answer you, because this generation knows all the right answers. They're just not doing the right things.
That's true. That is true. And something you kind of said that was key, Lulu, about the pride aspect of, borrowing money. I find it very, very, very difficult to ask people for money. Very difficult. I'm more likely to give people money in terms of just simply being a giver. If someone needs help, I'm willing to give, but then asking for help, that comes from my own experience, just of what I was taught. I have to be a provider and take care of other people. And I think sometimes this is the issue, maybe for some men and women, maybe due to previous relationships. They used to be givers, but because of bad situations, they stopped doing that because they don't want to be taken advantage of. So they become, instead of being frugal, which is where you need to be more wise with how you spend or how you're giving, they become a lot more stingier. So I think there's that balance too, because you actually also said that a lot of people do a whole lot of talking nowadays, but not a lot of action is put into actually put in the work to make relationships more sustainable. So then where would the generation now have to turn? Like, what would be the best thing to do in that situation? Both men and women are lost, not just in the finances, but because the characters aren't there necessarily to become ready for marriage. Everybody's just figuring it out as they're going along. Everybody's just chopping and changing, online dating, or let me try the next person, and more or less keeping up with the Joneses type of lifestyle. Everybody's just coming up with all sorts of different ways of making a relationship work, and they're not sure what to do.
Listen, I absolutely hear that. Thank you, that Jeff, as well. And it's made me think, because yeah, I've been experiencing stuff in these relationships, boy. But and I think it's interesting because it's important, obviously, like I said, having these conversations about how you see finance. And it was a good point by Lulu as well about the discernment. It's also key as well, because I think what's interesting, I remember a situation where I'm not going to say it. It's calm. It's not a point. I'm not going to say anybody's name. But I remember a situation where I was on a relationship, and then what was happening was, and the person obviously was trying to get out of a situation. See, and the thing for me is, if I'm in, I'm in. If I'm in, I'm in. Whether I'm married or not, I'm in. And I remember there was a situation that happened, and I had to ask myself this question. I said, "Am I in?" Because what's been asked right now is a lot, And so I'm in a situation where the person has some debts. It was heavy debts. I'm talking heavy debts. So we had to set a budget first and foremost. I watched how she moved. She stuck to the budget, and she was paying the debts off. But it was getting to the last little few bits, and a couple of things were hitting, so it kind of took her a little bit off course. Then I was hit with a question, not by her per se, but to myself. Do you help pay the debt, or do you just leave her to it? Because you're not married, you're not engaged. You've talked about it, but you're not there yet. Do you help? And now, of course, I wouldn't advise this for everybody, right? You know what I mean? But I'm a person that, first and foremost, obviously, when it comes to relationship, like if I'm in it. So if I'm heading somewhere and I'm trying to head towards that goal of marriage, I'm gonna treat it like a marriage already. Do you know what I'm saying to you? So financially, I was in a question, and the reason why I'm mentioning this is because I think there are these decisions when you talk about borrowing money and stuff like that, right? I didn't want her to borrow any money to sort that last bit of issue out, so I gave her the money. It was more than I've ever given anybody. I can tell you that for free. It was more than I've ever given anybody, right? And I remember what happened. So after it happened, like, this girl, I mean, she broke down. She was like, "I can't believe you did that." I said, "I can't believe I did that." If I'm honest with you. But the reality of the situation was, I think sometimes, and this is me personally, it's not descriptive, it's not prescriptive, it's descriptive for me personally. For me personally, what I was learning in that moment was that we're in this together. Because the one thing about me is I'm very independent, and so a lot of my thinking becomes very independent. Like, how you not have this sorted? That's how my brain always thinks. How you not get this sorted? How you not do this? How you not do that? Because in my head, I'm very independent, and so I apply that same steel and that same stick to everybody, right? So when I'm in a relationship with a person, I'm thinking to myself, how you get yourself in a situation like and not sort it out? In my head, that's all I'm thinking. But there had to be a period of time, and I think this is what goes to Lulu's point, right, about the discernment. There had to be a period where I literally, and I don't know if I think I heard it in a video or whatever, because I was asking the question to myself, do I pay this thing or not? Like, I was asking this question, I wasn't sure what to do. And I remember, I think I listened to one video or whatever, and the video was like, well, you have to see how that person moves. So you have to kind of not test them, but almost in the sense of provide an environment where they can show you consistency of them being serious about what they're doing. So when we set up the budget to then help pay off those debts in a way that would be slowly but surely get there, and it'd probably take about 12 months or so to do. After like 8 months, the person was just on it, didn't change, didn't deviate, didn't go away from it. You know what I mean? Never asked me to pay for the debt or anything like that. Nothing like that at all. And it was really helpful for the person. Then I think it got to like the 10th month and something just hit. I can't remember what it was. Some family situation hit and it was mad. And unfortunately, she couldn't then do the situation. She couldn't then pay the last part of the debt, which meant that she accrued more debt as an interest fact, right? And I said to myself, can I trust this person now after 9 months or so of paying it directly, stuck to the budget? Can I do that? Now, the independent part of me said, mother freaking no. Let them pay that mother freaking stuff. Okay, they'll find a way. The other part of me said, but then just because you're not married don't mean that you're not a team. Doesn't mean you can't work together. Doesn't mean that you can't help. And then I had to do something which I think that is very difficult for a lot of people, including myself, which is when you're giving, you can't think about the comeback. And I wasn't thinking about the comeback, it being given back or, as a loan. I don't really do loans. So if it's given, it's given. You know what I mean? So in my head, I had to wrestle with myself in terms of money, how I looked at it as if we're a team, irrespective of whether there's a ring on the finger or not. For me, if I'm a team and you're with me, I can't see you struggling like that and leave you to the dirt. I just can't. Now, maybe she might have been ingenious and maybe sorted it out later on, but I can see that she was going to go and do something. I can see that it was starting to become a struggle. So I was like, nah, I'm gonna give you this money, right? And I remember the conversation after. This girl broke down. And I'm talking about breaking down. And I was looking at it's all right. It is what it is. But she said, I can't imagine somebody would have done that, even though we're not married or something like that. Now, why am I saying that? I'm saying it's not prescriptive. I'm not saying everybody's go out and do this. Please don't go out and do this. I'm not advising it. But I'm saying is, again, going back to Lulu's point, discernment had to come through watching patterns of behavior also through over time. If I had seen that she was going to be mad about paying it, I wouldn't have done nothing. I'll be honest with you. I just can't do it because I'm like, then you haven't learned the lesson. And what's going to happen is if you don't learn the lesson, we're going to be having more holes that we're trying to plug. And it's just going to get wider and wider and wider. So there had to be a period of time where you're saying, Lulu, like you were saying, Lulu, about observation of behavior over several months and seeing that and seeing how she implemented the budget. And I know it was restricting for her because she's somebody that likes money, not money. She likes to spend money because that makes her feel free. So I knew it was tough for her to get to that place. So when I saw the consistency of behavior, that's when I was able to then join in. So I think you're absolutely right, Lulu. I think we do need to observe behavior, discern, watch, see how people move, see their character as well. Because by you helping, you actually can hinder that person's progress and you might not realize it. So I definitely understand that. Again, I'm not prescribing this for anybody else because if you're not married, taking on somebody's debts might not be the best thing to be doing. It's a risk and you have to be ready that if that risk doesn't pay off and you don't end up in a relationship as in marriage, whatever, it counts at a cost. It's gone. You know what I mean? So I definitely hear that. But it reminded me of that situation of that and because I was struggling. I can't lie to you. But after I did that, it really freed me in terms of how I see relationships after that. that irrespective of whether you think whether I might be fearing that you might use me, I don't care. Like, of course I'm going to discern, I'm going to observe and everything like that, but I'm not going to think about whether you're going to use me, because that was a fear. You're going to use me, and what if this breaks up and whatever. We broke up, I think, 2 months after. And now maybe someone might say she was trying to use me. I don't know. I mean, to be honest, she helped me a lot as well. She helped me a lot when I lost my job, so I can't really say that. So for me, it's more of a case of not holding on to certain things and having a negative idea of it. If we're in this together, it is ours together. Whether I win, whether I lose, I'm not trying to play it like I want to be scared. Do you know what I mean? I think you got to have an abundant mindset, like Lulu was kind of saying. Yes, Jeff, go for it.
Hey, Coach, do you honestly, I feel like sometimes, do you think our ego gets in the way a lot more than it should when it comes to handling money? Especially, let's say, if you're making a substantial amount of money. Let's say in this case, imagine if, I don't know, you're with someone who's making more money than you. Do you think in that situation or scenario, do you think your ego will start acting up? Because again, we've tied the value of who a person is to how much this person has or making. The moment someone does a one-up over us, there's almost like a complex, like we're fighting with ourselves, struggling with that concept of, because I'm the one that's supposed to be providing. I'm the one that's supposed to be taking care of the big business, and I've got someone doing it more than me. Like, how do you wrestle with that? Or is that something that's simply just, is that more of a societal thing, or is that more of a biological thing?
In terms of what men having to provide aspect?
I think so, yeah. Like, what do you think about that?
I think there's a lot of ego for us as men, because our value is based in our provision. It's based in our performance. So there's a lot of ego that goes into it. In fact, I would go as far as to say it's biblical, because when the curse was given to man and to woman, there were 2 things that were given. Woman, when you bear children, you'll feel the pain, and also you will seek to control your husband, but he will rule over you. That rulership does not mean dictatorship, by the way, guys. It means he will lead you, right? And then it comes to men, and it says you will till the ground, right? You will sweat and you will till the ground. So the reality of the situation is that if you're not tilling the ground, what are you actually doing? Because you are going to have to till the ground. Now that doesn't mean you have to work the hardest or whatever. What it means is you're going to work. You know, whether it's YouTube, whether it's your 9 to 5, whether it's you're an entrepreneur, whatever it is, you're going to work. So for me, for men and our ego, it's not even just our ego. It is our manhood, that there's an aspect of provision in your role. You have to find some way of providing, and it doesn't matter how you do it. And this is why men will go into gang crime and stuff like this, because irrespective of that, their manhood is dependent upon providing. You can't get away from that. So yes, ego is definitely lodged in there. Absolutely. Yeah. Hope that answers the question. Elsie.
Hello. Can you guys hear me?
We can indeed, baby.
Awesome. How's everyone doing today?
Doing fabulous. Good to see you back.
Yes, thank you for having me back. I just wanted to mention something quickly. I have some errands to run, but something that I think I saw in the chat, and I even made a comment about it, is the control when it comes to money. I think subconsciously, ever since, I don't even know how old, but the idea of marrying rich had always rubbed me the wrong way, just because I associated that with control. And I don't know if it had anything to do with any of the movies that we grew up watching in Ghana. I have no idea. But I would feel uncomfortable with the idea of just finding someone to marry that's rich, because of the control that they have over you. So it just kind of dawned on me that, one, excuse me, Dwayne Wade and Gabrielle Union, they didn't have the best foundation to begin with. The way they started didn't start off on a strong foundation. So I think that says something about their relationship in general, because didn't he and her get together under false pretenses? Didn't Dwayne Wade leave his kid's mom to be with Gabrielle, and then eventually somehow he ended up having like an affair or something? So I think a lot of her wanting to be a part of the next home that they get together is to have some sort of control back because of him having more money and being able to do whatever he was doing. So she was also operating from a place of, I gotta get some control in this relationship because he already cheated on me, even though y'all started under like cheating situation. But it just reminded me of Danae Jackson and Derek Jackson. She didn't know anything that was going on financially, and she just assumed that they had all these assets because she didn't have any control or any awareness of where any of the money was going. So I just think it's interesting that there's so many examples, like the extreme examples, of course, of how women are trying to hold on to some sort of control to be able to do stuff, like be able to go to a Beyonce concert because of the how expensive it is. And that's the other thing. We don't know 100% the backstory of that couple. Because they probably just gave us a snapshot of what their relationship looked like. We don't know if she actually buckled down and didn't do any spending, or she did do a lot of spending before, and this is just basically what broke the camel's back. We don't know for sure. We were just going under a lot of assumptions, because for me, I recall when I was going through a lot of issues with trying to get a handle of my money, as one of the ladies had mentioned how they had worked 3 jobs. I was doing that. I was working 2 jobs, going to grad school just to like get myself out of debt. And the only day I would have off would be to catch up on schoolwork. So just working myself to the bone, and then just feeling like I'm not rewarding myself in any way, it kind of played with my mental health for 2 years. So maybe, just maybe, it's possible that this lady wanted to go to this concert because she was not enjoying whatever money that she was making or participating in the relationship that she was in. We don't know that for sure. We're just speculating. I think there's a lot of assumption because of the state of the world we're in, that women are very money driven and want to make sure that men have X amount of money before they even step to them, that we're just assuming a lot of things half the time. So I think if we go into it with some sort of nuance and grace that we don't know the full story, that might also be something to keep in the back of our mind. So I just thought that the whole Gabrielle Union thing was not surprising because of the foundation that her and her husband even started off on. So it's kind of like, no, okay, that's not too surprising. I can understand why she wants to be a participant financially because of his discretions as well. But it's like, well, y'all disgressed together. So anyway, that's all I wanted to say.
Appreciate it, Elsie. No, not a problem at all. Yeah, I mean, there are some people that will use money as control, and some of us have seen some of those things as well, and that makes it very difficult as well to enter some of those relationships as well. And again, this is why it's important to, 1, be self-aware, but 2, also as well, be communicating with our partners as well about some of those traumas we may have, or some ideas and viewpoints that we may have, because it just helps the other person understand where you're coming from, right? It understands where you're coming from. I remember I had a good friend of mine and a girl, and when I met her, I think it was like 2 years ago during the pandemic when we were going to do acting and stuff. And I went to buy her a meal or whatever. She was like, nope. I said, what do you mean no? Like, no, I don't know. You're not buying it. I can buy my own thing. You know what I mean? But when we got down to discussing and talking, I understood where she came from. And then when we got to that understanding, I said to her, listen, it's not me trying to take over or control. It's just a nice gesture to do. Plus, I'm flexing a little bit, but don't worry about that. You know what I mean? So like, she was like, okay, cool. I understand. Do you know what I mean? So, you know, I think sometimes we do have to try and get to understand why someone's coming, where they're coming from. Yes, Elsie.
So I guess my question with that is, at what point when it comes to dating, at what point do we as ladies go back to just feeling comfortable with letting the man pay? Because I've had both extremes where I would allow the man to pay and even offer to pay for the tip. But then on the other extreme, before we even get to the date, I would get complaints from the man like, well, we're going to go 50-50, or you can eat before we meet up. Like, it's hard to decipher at what point are we allowed to just feel safe to accept a date that the man is paying for, or be on guard like, oh no, if I let you pay, you're going to want something in return. And not necessarily a dominance thing, but like you want the poussoir, basically.
in all honesty, this is solved by having conversation before we go on a date. Like, I really think we're a generation that goes on dates before, like we are a more dangerous generation because people are doing wilder stuff and we know about it. But I think that we also are fast movers and fast paced movers without really doing our due diligence. For instance, if you meet someone on Hinge, why is it you're going on a date before you actually have any kind of real conversations? One or two little tidbits of flirting that you guys did. It sounds like a great guy. He looks good. His little bio was cool, whatever. But then there should have been surely there should be a bit more conversation like before then. And I would say there should be a little bit more conversation just before then. You know, whether it's an Instagram call or whatever, just a general conversation, get a bit of a feel of that person. Do you know what I mean? And the difficulty is it's very hard to learn. It's very hard to be able to ask people questions about their viewpoints on money without it coming out looking sticky. So it's something that has to be almost grasped and learned in a way that you can ask in a way that's almost cheeky, but it's not going to be like a big sticking point, right? So in reality, you can joke, you can put it loosely, like, hey, I don't, and some girls will tell it straight, and if that's the way you do it and you feel most comfortable, then say it straight. You know what I mean? Because people are going to work with your standard. Do you know what I mean? So you just got to find a way that works best for you to let the person know that what your standard is. So if your standard is you want me to pay on the first date, you let me know your standard to pay on the first date, and I'm going to respond accordingly. You know what I'm saying to you?
Yeah. No, and to be fair, I try. It doesn't always work out, but I try to make those concessions before, or evaluations before getting to the first date. Sometimes you do get bamboozled because, like one of the ladies said, I think it was Dahlia, people online lie. People online lie. Like, if I ask you what you're looking for and you say, oh, I'm looking for a relationship, I'm a place where I want to settle down, and then later on I am operating under the impression, okay, he's being intentional, and then later on you realize, well, you don't really want to be in a relationship with me, which is fine. Just say that versus saying, oh, I'm just trying to go with the flow. It's like, wait, what? That was not what you said 2 weeks ago. So I'm just saying that to say people lie just to get to the first date. And it's hard to discern sometimes how much of that lie is a lie and how much of what they're saying is actually the truth till you actually get to the first date. So I've had many first dates for that reason, because usually people can't keep up that lie for too long if they're, I guess, amateur, so to speak.
Then you have already sussed your equation already. You can see.
I try. I just don't even want to get to that point where I'm meeting you in person to see, like, oh wait, I just wasted my time.
I'll let Lulu go and then I'll respond.
Okay,
Lulu, go for it, and then Dahlia go. So
A lot of what she's saying comes from a fear-based perspective. I think, and when you're operating out of your fears, or fears or even insecurities, I think you can sometimes often run into caring what people think, and just feeling it's like a prison that you create in your own mind. So you don't want to date rich because, okay, your idea of rich is of this fear that rich person's going to mistreat or misuse or mishandle you. I think you've got to get I don't want to give any kind of advice. But I think we as people have to get to a place that we know we're not dealing in fear or insecurity. We've answered all those questions. Then you can date from a place of authenticity where you show up and say, this is me. I expect you to pay, or I expect to pay because that's how I roll, and you respect it or get gone. And I think the people will respond to that energy accordingly. Like, I think the person who feels like they have the least to lose always shows up with a whole lot of expectations of how people are going to respond to them. But when you show up with a certain level of confidence of how you act and this is what you expect, people respect that, and they move with that energy accordingly. So I think deciding, do you pay on every date, or does every date pay for you even before you leave the house? For any date, I think it changes the energy of how you date and how you expect things, and even the people you start to attract, because you'll attract men that respond accordingly and come with the wallet in hand. Like when they say hoes be winning, it's not because hoes uh are strategically doing something different. It's because they've set a certain level of confidence in themselves and expect people to move with their energy. But I'll let Kojo go.
No, good points, Lulu. No, I'm not even. Dahlia, you want to say something? Go for it. Good points, Lulu.
Yeah, this is just an answer to Elsie's question. I've lived by the advice that my stepdad has given me. He gave me this advice probably a good 15 years ago. He told me whenever I go on a date to make sure that I have enough money to cover myself. So if the man doesn't want to pay, then I can at least take care of myself. That way, there's no fussing, there's no fighting. I'm not going to argue with you. If you don't want to pay, I will pay my way. Thank you for the lovely date. And then in the back of my mind, it's please lose my number. Okay. So that's the first thing that I would say. I don't have conversations with people beforehand about who's going to pay. It's I will ask when we're at the end of the date, hey, do you are you comfortable paying, or did you want me to pay my half? It's totally fine either way. 99% of the time they will pay. I've only ever had to come up out of my pockets twice. And to be honest with you, those were crappy dates anyway, so I really didn't care. So that's the first thing. The second thing is, even if you do go on a more expensive date, which I typically don't on first dates, I like low pressure first dates. But even if you do, your expectation of what you expect to come with that meal is not my problem. I was just doing a Bible study today in Psalm 62, where they mentioned the word hope a lot. And so I was looking up the definition for that. And part of the definition is expectation. And expectation is a strong belief that something will happen or that something's going to come in the future. You can only have that expectation if I gave you reason to believe that that's what will come. Now, unless I specifically told you that that some poussoir is going to come, your belief that you're going to get something out of this meal is your own. It's a delusional belief, and I don't truck with delusions. Okay, so that's not really my problem, and I know I'm coming on strong when I say this, but I think that a lot of women do this where they feel like they have obligations to somebody because they did something nice for you, and that was their decision. It has nothing to do with you. Now, if you decide that you want to go and have a lovely night afterwards because that's what you want to do, that's fine. But don't feel like you owe something to somebody because they gave you a meal. I mean, we're not whores here. This is not a transaction. That's not how this works. So that's my way of thinking when I go into dates like that. And so I use that in order for me to be able to feel comfortable enough to have conversations with people and get to know them without there being any sort of pressure on either end.
So that's fair about maybe the fear mindset of not wanting to come across people who are rich, so to speak. I didn't even think about that. So there might have been a certain kind of energy I may be carrying. So I'll definitely make an attempt to heal from that once I get back into therapy. My rebuttal here is I live in Atlanta, so it doesn't really matter how much confidence I come to the date with, there's always that expectation. And to add to the fact that I am 39, there's always this like air of, well, women like you or women at your age just want to have a good time. And that's what I mean by the flip that happens when I usually meet them in person is they go from, oh, I want something serious to just something casual. So I guess I'm giving y'all Sparks Notes versions of what's happening behind the scenes before I meet people in person. So a lot of the struggle too is where I live in general.
No, I definitely hear you. I hear you, Elsie. You know, it can be very tough. I heard, yeah, Atlanta. Yeah, we've all heard about Atlanta. So we're in the UK, we heard about your space. So, I remember when I even stepped into Atlanta. The first thing I remember, I was riding with Sean. I was riding my Uber, and the first thing I saw along the highway was women, just women. Like cars pulled up to my Uber, not like they were trying to go anything, but they pulled up next to the Uber. Every time was a woman. I was like, where are the men in this city? Y'all don't have no men in that city. It is an exodus of men in that city. I don't know what's going on. So I can understand, you know, the craziness that you guys might be going through because I didn't even see many men when I was there. I can't even lie to you. But that's another story for another day. But I definitely hear what you're saying. I think all jokes aside, me about Atlanta, you know, I definitely hear it's a very tough crowd in Atlanta, and so it does make it difficult. And you know what? The harshest truth is there are some wild solutions here, you know, wild solutions, which is because if things are not working the way it's working, then maybe you need to maybe you might have to unfortunately spend a bit more time having more conversations to weed them out earlier than going on a date. If that's annoying for you, or if that's a source of frustration, may have to extend the period of conversational time. There may need to be, listen, as crazy it may sound, I'm not saying you should, just saying it's an option. It's wild. You may have to move cities. You know what I mean? If that's an agenda that you're looking for, maybe moving cities will be, or maybe even looking on a dating apps outside of the district that you're at in terms of Atlanta, maybe, you know, and starting some conversation that way. So that I'm not saying that's necessarily what you have to do, and just offering some stuff on the table, but clearly if something's not working in a particular area, we're gonna have to look at some options that may look outside of that. You know what I mean? So
Yeah. And I'll say, this is the last thing I'll say before I drop off. I do have a hard time dating long distance because for me, I think it's hard to discern when you're long distance and you only see each other once or twice a month. So you can give me a lot of lip service, and I can only see so much when we do interact during the weekends, but also it's expensive. Gas prices being so high right now, it's expensive to fly back and forth. But I did try the long distance with a couple of people, and that didn't work out for several different reasons. But one of the things that I did consider is moving. My hesitation with moving right now is that my only family that I have left right now is in Atlanta. Both my parents passed, so I don't want to necessarily leave the only family I have left in the States and go and start over somewhere else. But eventually I'm going to have to do it if I'm looking for something that I can't find, that I'm unable to find in Atlanta. So, but yeah, I have thought about moving, just haven't decided where or when just yet. But thank you for having me on. Great conversation. Y'all have a great day.
Appreciate it, Elsie. Thank you. Much love for that. Well, our 3-hour mark has been hit, so I can't do any more than that. I'm trying to be dedicated to not going any longer than that. So, Dahlia, Lulu, and Jeff has been appreciative. I'm going to be here tomorrow. We'll do the same time again because I didn't get to hit all my points that I had for the thing. We took a detour, which is really good. I don't mind. Conversation's always really worthy as well. So hopefully we get to have you guys here tomorrow as well if you're available, and have some more conversations as it goes along. But audience members, thank you so much for joining us. It's been much appreciated. I just received one of my, tomorrow I'll wear. I got my hoodie from the merch guys. So the merch is now taking long to come to here. So when you start seeing me wearing it, don't be asking questions. Just make sure you grab yours. You understand? You get me? I had to go and cop the burgundy red, because I can only do the red. You know what I'm saying?
Wait. You're gonna wear a hoodie at this time where it's so hot in the UK?
I'm dedicated to making some sales. Okay, all right. I'm here to be rich, so I can buy these Beyonce tickets. Okay, on the first date. Okay, I need to show up these people and let these ladies know. Okay, you're gonna get some Beyonce tickets on the first
chest
date.
already be chesting. You don't need to be shot. You already got chest.
Nah,
man.
I need all corners to be cornered, bruv. We need Beyonce tickets on the first date.
Listen,
Then I need to have money for reality
love
tickets.
putting on layers in the heat. Okay, just watch what the kids are doing right now. I'm telling you, all they wear is hoodies. It could be 100 degrees. They're gonna wear a hoodie.
What?
The temperature right now is 27 degrees outside.
Bruh.
Which for you guys doesn't make sense. The Fahrenheit is probably about 80. Is it about 80? Going 80 something Fahrenheit?
Well, I'm from Texas, so that doesn't sound terrible to me. But yeah, that's hot.
Nah, it's not terrible for you guys. Yeah, it's compared to what we are going through. But for us, because as well, we don't have much. Yes, 80. I was bang on. It's 80 degrees Fahrenheit. So yeah, because we don't have much wind, here it tracks differently. You know what I mean? I can't even lie to you. The heat in UK, it's just different. But then again, I say that you guys, have aircon in every building and everything like that. We don't have necessarily that in UK, so it's a bit different. But yeah, try 90 here in Texas, somebody said, which is what, close to 35 degrees or whatever, 30, 35
I'm
degrees.
disappointed. Our people are built for heat. Come on now.
Baby, I'm not built for this kind of heat. I'm sorry. Okay, I'm not built for this kind of heat.
You guys
all
are
right?
different.
I'm not built for this kind of heat. I'm sorry, I can't do it. Even when I go to Ghana, you rarely see me out in the daytime. I'm a nighttime caller because I'm not trying to be in all that heat. You know what I'm saying? When the skin is just burning. Yeah, bro. I can't do it, bro.
No.
I cannot do it, bro. You know what I mean? I can't do it. I don't know how people do it. I start feeling tired. I start feeling lethargic. I now know why Ghanaians walk so slowly. Because why would you walk slowly? It's freaking hot. Any faster pace, you are going to pass out. You need to walk slowly.
Yes.
So now I know why they walk so slowly.
As long as it's not humid, it's good. It's fine.
It is humid. It is, and what makes it worse, the fan. The fan is blowing hot air in your face.
Bro, that's why you have to get a place with aircon. And the thing about Ghana is not everywhere has aircon. It has fans, which means it blows air, which is oftentimes not that cool. Even if it's on full speed and it's going woo, 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 woo. It's like you got to take one of the two. You're going to hear the woo, 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 woo in your ear all day, or you're going to have some, just about some cool air. It's crazy. Someone said it. Look, UK homes are built to keep the heat in. So right now I'm downstairs. I can't be upstairs. I can't. I don't know what's temperature in London, Jeff, because it's slightly different. Up north is 27, but you guys might have more than us.
Still, from what I'm seeing, it's still 27. So we're it could be up north or down it. We're still dying. We're equal in our death at this point.
I don't know what kind of temperature you guys have in London, but it feels different when you're in London. It just feels hotter. It just feels hotter. I can't lie to you. You know what I'm saying? All the way, guys, I've also got a mug as well. I love this mug. I'm going to be drinking out of it. Yeah. It says stay hydrated on it as well. Don't play with me. Okay? All right? Listen, guys, listen as well. Grab your hoodies. I can't wear it right now because it's too hot. I'm been sweating. But grab your hoodies as well, guys. All right? Yeah, don't play with it. You understand? Yeah? Don't play with it. Grab your hoodies as well, guys. Okay? Mineral gang. You feel me? By the way, listen, I got to go because my nose is running and I haven't eaten all day. So I'm going to be back probably in about a few minutes probably about half an hour because I'm going to do the Lovers Blind, my usual Lover Blind thing. So make sure you guys like, share, subscribe, click on the bell button. We'll be back here tomorrow for another conversation about Gabrielle Union and Dwayne Wade because I want to break it down a bit more because there's more points I want to go through. But yeah, I appreciate you, panel members and audience. Don't do anything I wouldn't do, okay? And yes, we do need to talk about the Mary J. Blige paying alimony. I absolutely laughed because she was complaining, and I was looking at her like, so what do you think these men have been trying to say to you guys? Okay, all right. You now know it's not